Welcome councillors, it's 5:30 and I'm going to open the meeting. Welcome to all of our attendees on Zoom this evening. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the newly legislated state government requirements, the December Ordinary Council meeting will be undertaken as a virtual meeting, conducted using webinar facilities. The council chambers will be closed to members of the public. A link to the council meeting for viewing by members of the public will be available via the council website. Recordings of council meetings or parts thereof cannot be copied, recorded, reproduced, reused or transmitted without the prior consent of the General Manager. The meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on council's website, and persons attending the meeting should refrain from making any defamatory remarks or statements. Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri, Gundungurra and Darug people and respects the history and cultures of the elders, both past and present. I'll now call upon Councillor Gibbons to offer the prayer. Could we all stand, please?
Dear Lord, as we begin to pray, just let us reflect for a moment on the sad loss of Bruce Armstrong in a farm accident late last week. And as we pray, we think of his family and the commitments that they have put into our community. So we'll remember their family. It's going to be a sad time at Christmas for them, and we'll keep them in our prayers. Thank you, Lord, for being our constant companion. The season of Christmas is upon us. A child is born to give light to the world's people. Your example of humility, truth, honesty, beauty and love gives hope to us all. And we need these values more than at any other time in the world's history. As leaders of this community tonight, we ask for guidance and inspiration as we make important decisions for our community. And we ask that you bring joy and peace to all peoples at this Christmas. We may just all pray together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbons. Item 4, page 4, we have no leave of absences this evening. All councillors are in the room. Page 5, any declarations of interest, councillors? No declarations, thank you. Page 6, item 6, presentations. We have a presentation this evening from Simon Evans from Copy, Kieran Brooks and US Selma from Weber Architects. It's a 15-minute presentation giving a brief overview of the hub, and there'll be 15 minutes after that if required for councillors to ask questions. So I'd now like to welcome Simon, who I believe is speaking first, to our meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello, everyone. I'll get started straight away so we can make the most of our time together. If I can just share the screens. Okay, can you all see that? All right, can you see that now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, just getting started then. So I'll go over the community consultation results, survey results, and then also touch on the business case side option analysis we went through for the community hub. This page talks about the results from the survey. So we did the survey both online and a hard copy survey. That was decided upon so we could try and reach as many people as possible. And when we looked at those results, the report includes their results individually, but also combines them to give us some percentages here. So what we found was that, 72% either strongly supported or supported the proposed redevelopment of the community hub. And some of the comments there, supported that there's a real need to expand the library and the community function spaces and provide some more exhibition spaces, etc. There was also recorded, 24% that opposed or strongly opposed. So there's a few percent in the middle that either didn't respond or are on the fence. Next point was that 76% of respondents agreed that the existing location of the community centre is a suitable location. And further said that the survey indicated that the important areas or issues to include in the redevelopment included the library and expanding the library, making sure the new facility was more accessible, making sure we had better function spaces. And they also wanted to make sure that the development was considerate and limited any impacts during construction, and wanted to increase and provide better meeting rooms and exhibition spaces. We also noted that 53% of respondents indicated that they don't have any issue with the proposed development. That come from question 3, where they could tick the box for no issue or none issue. But we also noted, however, that the respondents that did raise concerns about the following issues here, mainly to do with parking and traffic. 32% thought there would be issues with, didn't like the redevelopment because there are potential issues with parking. Traffic was 24%, and 20% of those who opposed the redevelopment opposed it because of the proposed location. And there was some other that thought the funds could be used better spent elsewhere. If I move on to the business case now, when we looked at the business case and the site option analysis, the aim overall was to kind of determine that clear functional requirements, including the indicative sizes of the facilities and the footprint that would be adequate to accommodate, the growing population. This was done in conjunction with the community consultation work and with the architect. We also had the aim of identifying possible venues or site locations for the proposed community hub, and we looked at the possible venues or locations in conjunction with council, and we took many suggestions from that community consultation. We were also trying to make sure we determine some evaluation criteria and methodology that would be used to assess each venue or site. And then we conducted the site option analysis and reported against those evaluation criteria. And finally, it was to come up with, to identify and recommend a preferred site option to council. So we did it in 2 stages. Stage 1 looked at evaluation criteria of kind of ownership of the land or property, and then its proximity to town centre. That gave us a shortlist, and then with the shortlist, we also looked at other things like the cost, proximity to town centre again, any issues with parking, making sure that we could meet current building code, alignment with council's kind of functional and strategic requirements, other site constraints, any other impact to operations or displacement of occupants, etc. So we're going through that process. The list of potential venues we found or developed or agreed is the list here, the 9 venues. So number 1 being the existing community centre site. But we also considered other options that were raised by the community, being the Malachi Hall, the Oberon Visitor Centre on Ross Street, also the Oberon Common on Edith Street. We looked at the Oberon Council Chambers, the Oberon Showgrounds, the RSL, Black Springs Community Hall, and the Christian Life Centre. And the map there shows the general location of each of those. In going through that process, the shortlist was down to 2, that being the existing community centre and the Oberon Council Chambers. They both tick the box as far as the proximity to the town centre, so that anyone of the public that are visiting through town, doing their daily shop or work or whatever, could easily walk from where they've already parked down to the location, make use of the hub, and back home. So some of the reasons then was that it's obviously owned by council, land and property, and that proximity to the town centre. So with comparing those 2 on the shortlist, we found that the preferred option, recommended option, is option 1, being the existing location of the community centre. And here's a list of some of the reasons that support that case. Number 1 being that it's very central location. It's only a short walk from to Oberon Street, in the centre of town. It's obviously council-owned land and buildings. It would enable council to truly maximise the footprint of that site, building a larger community hub and kind of the option to actually merge and update the library. That was the next point about the multiple design options, demolishing some of those existing buildings, whether it be all or part, to create this new community hub. It gives you some strong functional alignment and connection between the library and the new community hub functions. The option would allow council to remove some existing asbestos and improve existing facilities at that community hall space. And we believe that there is opportunity or the possibility to add more car parking to the actual site or nearby. That may be on streets nearby or actual the other car parks and areas nearby. And compared to the existing council chambers, it would be much simpler and easier to construct on this site because you don't have the restrictions of those buildings or neighbours on either side of you and the tighter site that your current council chamber sits on. And we would see that the traffic or construction impacts to the community would be very low at this location as well. So that actually includes all of my slides. I'll stop sharing the screen and bring it all back up. And I think we can ask the architects Kieran and Ewis to take us through the next part.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
David.
Everyone see that screen on our?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Okay.
Good. Basically, Simon has already covered some part of the analysis. We're going to just go really quick on top of the analysis, just to explain the main points that we want to consider for the design options that we are presenting tonight. And then we'll go straight into the options because of the time constraints. As you're aware, you have already all the booklet with all the information that it provides with how we've got into these options, preliminary options that we did at the beginning with the first trying to approach to the brief and other kind of information that we are not going to show tonight. So if we go straight in there, what we could say is the interesting part of where the site is located, that it's really close to the city center, that it's 5 minutes walk basically from anywhere in the city center, and 10-minute walk of a nearby kind of basically the entire main city of Oberon. In regards to the site analysis and how it is located, we found really interesting that there's this potential kind of circulation connecting with the main street, just at the lane at the back. So that area here at the lane that connects with the main street and connects with the parking connections, parking from council that is at the other side of the street, that could be actually a really interesting element to pursue and to improve. And then in regards to the site, you probably know because you've been around, but you know, there's the main connection with the street. If we move forward, north is basically at the top of the site. So it's basically giving us light into the library right now. And that's one of the crucial elements that we've chosen in order how the layout has been distributed. In regards to how the building has been thought to work, there's the library, which is a really important item for the community and for the project. There's the function spaces that it's also really important, which is basically the hub itself, that it's somehow an area that it can be subdivided. And then there's an element of circulation in between that it also creates its own space, that it's this foyer art gallery, that it can be combined and used by the function spaces or by the library. So if we go straight into what's going on, this is what you have existing, but that's what it's already there. This is the old dentistry. This is the Bob Hooper function building, and this is the library. Currently, and for any of the proposals, what we've decided is that the dentist building couldn't really be reused because of its type of construction, because of how it's distributed, how old it is, and the lack of maintenance that it has had. So we believe that the dentistry building needs to go. And then for the other option, for the three options that we are going to present tonight, we've chosen one that it's actually removing all the buildings, another one that it's keeping the Bob Hooper and the library, and another one that it's keeping just the library. So if we go forward and we go straight into the different points, you can see in your booklet as well that one of the things that we've done is analyze what you currently have in the site. So there's a dimensioning and areas and elements analyzing what's happening right now. And that's evaluated for every single of the options when we go into the options. In regards to what we have right now, it is important to consider that the toilets and the accessible toilet that there's right now on site, it doesn't comply, the one in the library. So that's something that needs to be updated if we want to comply with PCA. If we go straight into the options, this one is basically the one that we try to keep the most. So basically what we can see here, this is the library building. And then here at the back, this is Bob Hooper function room. What happens in here, what we do is we try to work with the levels and we infill the buildings in between. And also at the same time, what we are doing is we are converting the library into the function room. We believe that the function room is better placed into this area because north is in this direction. So it's going to have plenty of sunlight, direct sunlight into the function room, which is really helpful for events and other type of users. And also the library will have a bit more of constant indirect light coming basically from the south, which is actually what it's convenient for reading and for kind of calm spaces. In regards to how it is distributed, all the options have basically kind of the same distribution, and it has the same kind of uses. The function room is a big space that it's around between 250 and 300 square meters. That depends on the budget and other constraints, but that's kind of the numbers that we're talking about. And then what happens with the function room is that it can be subdivided in three smaller function rooms that it allows to be used differently and separately at the same time. We have then, I'm going to change the color for making it a bit more clear. We have then what is the business center. The business center is, we believe that it's the right, if we are keeping all the buildings, the right location for the business center is where the Bob Hooper building is, because how it's already broken down in different rooms and how it is, we can work more in the kind of little spaces type that it requires. And it also provides us for direct connectivity from outside in after hours kind of usage. And then in the center of the development, we have the reading area for the library that it's connected with the CTC, and it's connected with meeting rooms, makers, the youth center, so different bubbles that's happening around the library. And then these big central this big center foyer space, that it's the one that it gives the circulation, it gives the breathing space between the areas, and it gives this kind of usage that it's not really on the book, it's more kind of flexible, can be adapted to be used with the library, can be used with the function room, can be used with the function center, and can be used independently as an art gallery as well. In all the options, as you will see as well, another thing that it's been always really important is the history considering the tapestry hall. A tapestry hall is always an area that we've considered in all the options for a circulation space, that it considers these tapestries, that it explains the history and explains the heart of Oberon. Again, talking about heart is also this foyer element. That's the one that it's also guided in order to show the craftsmanship of Oberon, to show the elements that you can actually promote into the tourism or even inside of the proper people in Oberon. So I'm going to move straight to option 2, and then later we'll go for questions if there's anything in particular. Option 1, that's kind of a general view of basically that's the materiality of how the building is going to look. It's not decided yet, it's not set in stone, but that's kind of an indication of what we can do with the building, considering the existing building. So what we're trying to explain in this image is we have an existing building that is the Bob Hooper, we have the library, and then what we are doing is intertwine the two buildings and creating this new space that it actually relates both and bring these spaces into the 21st century. If we go into the option 2, that's a bit clearer. So one of the constraints that we have with option 1 is that Bob Hooper building is actually in diagonal in the middle of the site, which creates a lot of constraints of how to design, but we believe that it's a good result what we've achieved. But then option 2, it's considering the Bob Hooper is demolished as well. Then what we have is again, the clear functions area at one of the sides. We have the reading area with all the elements related to the library closer to the library. It's the youth center, the CTC, the maker's space. The foyer again, it happens again, the same element that we were discussing before about having this circulation space that it can be also used for events and to showcase the craftsmanship from Oberon. The tapestry hall, really important. And then at the back, we have the business center that it will work similarly to the option 1, in which basically it's a set of workstations that will be kind of hot desks, and then live better in one of the offices, potentially a second office to be used, and meeting rooms and other uses related. For option 2, we also did a bit of an approach of how it could look. And the idea is, again, we're trying to respect or show some kind of intention in regards to the existing library. And then we build at the site showing modern way of building and modern technologies for the rest of the building. Then if we go to the third option, which will be removing all the buildings and starting from scratch, that's the one that it gives us more flexibility and more capacity to manipulate the elements, because basically we have a blank canvas. And then what we're doing in this one is, again, placing the functions room also subdividable. We have the library area at the side. We have these really important foyer art gallery element, the tapestry hall at the entry, really important. And then we go for a business hub at one of the edges, and a bit of mixed use, which is related to the library and related to the foyer of meeting rooms, CTC, youth center. In all the options, sorry, I forgot to say that in all the options, we have a kitchen that it's kind of close to the function room in order to cater for the function room, and toilets and all the other elements that they are required for that. In general, all the options, we believe that they are feasible, and all the options provide different kind of advantages and disadvantages. So basically, we're talking that in order to keep the budget on place, that it's something that Simon will talk after us, we had to reduce the building in size in order to make more demolition. So basically the big comparison that you can go straight away is you will see that this building, considering that everything is demolished, it's smaller than the option only demolishing Bob Hooper, and this is actually smaller than the option of keeping it all. So basically that's the main difference. The building that keeps more part can be bigger within a similar budget, but at the same time, it creates different constraints about how it's going to be used because it's more limited for the existing walls. Just as a kind of a little note at the end, we see the aesthetics of, if we are going to demolish the buildings, we see the aesthetics of the new hub as something blatantly contemporary and really honest and really kind of pure, and making an image and a statement about the area in Oberon. And that's kind of the aesthetics that we could go through. Again, as I said for the other options, that's not something that it's set in stone. That's something that it's going in our imagination in regards to how the layouts that we've explained before can be developed. Just as a little note, when we were talking about the different way of using the function rooms, that's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking that it can be used as a single auditorium. It can be used as a big functions event room, and then different ways of that we can subdivide. So it can be a small auditorium with some kind of little events, Pilates, gym, more kind of a round table symposium, a typical kind of classroom, and more kind of practice lecture element that there's a bit of tables where people can be using it while somebody's talking. I don't know, Kieran, if you want to say, sorry, I kind of took the entire.
No, it's good. Obviously, we need to get through a lot in a short amount of time then. But there is questions available as well, but I suppose a bit more on the costs. Simon might be able to chime in here, but essentially we did look at a few options to meet the brief exactly as we got it from the stakeholders. Those options did come back over budget. We've looked at the priorities of that brief and come up with those three options, which are all teetering around the budget number. High level figures at this stage, obviously, because we haven't got detailed documentation. But yeah, Simon, you probably maybe can add to the cost conversation.
Yeah, I guess, do you want me to bring up the page from the cost report for those at the meeting, or have you seen that within the submission and are happy to leave it at that?
We all do have the cost report in front of us.
Okay.
I've got a lot of questions on it, but I have it here.
Should we open it up for questions then?
Okay, Councillor McKibben.
I've got rather a lot, so I don't know if Councillor Gibbons would like to go first. Or...
Councillor McKibben.
Oh, thank you. I note that the fit-out works doesn't include the shelving, and I assume soft furnishings for areas like the reading rooms, and seating for the CTC, Business Centre, etc. I'm not sure where that would be budgeted, but I'm assuming that that would have to be funded by Oberon Council independently of the grant, on the basis that the budgets for each of the options are close to well, at the moment they're over 3 million. Is that correct? Do you have any
No.
idea what?
Option one was under 3 million. By I think 40.
300, it includes a construction contingency, and it's 3238384 with the contingency for with the 10% construction contingency of 250,000. Sorry, did you hear that?
Simon, did you hear the question?
I thought that question was answered by Gary just then. Sorry.
Chris, I can throw some light on the fit out. The fit out is not included in this grant.
That's right. Yeah.
There are infrastructure grants available with an allowance every year from the State Library, and that's where it's presumed that the fit out costs, the full funding will.
Would it all be paid for by one of those fit out grants? That's what I'm questioning, because this is a new build.
Well, we don't know what the fit out is going to be at this point in time. This is just the concept design, but that's where it's envisioned that the fit out costs will come from.
Okay, so we would have to somehow fund that independently. The design contingency of 242,554 is in addition to the professional fees, which I assume incorporate the design fees. Is that right? Why is the design contingency so high?
The design contingency is so high at this stage because we are only at concept stage. We need to do a lot more work to refine the design and get some unknowns and make them all certain. So industry standard is that you try and allow about 10% design contingency as well as your 10% construction when you get to that.
So what level of design fees have been included within the professional fees?
The professional fees, again, industry standard for this value of job, it normally works out to be around 4% architectural fees, 4% other professional services fees, and 4% project management fees, given a total of around 12%, which is included in the cost plan at this stage.
I understand that, and their figures I'm aware of, but I'm not aware of such a high design contingency at this, when we've already allowed for 4% for design. So are you saying
that design contingency is not just to cover extra fees for the architect or the design team, it's to cover additional construction costs that are not known in the building at this stage. So they will be may or may not be absorbed by wanting to do something nicer to the facade, or something, some features in the ceiling, or some nicer finishes in tiles, that type of thing.
Okay, but with all of those fees counted up and including a construction contingency, the pricing varies between 3.238 for option A to 3.390 for option 3A, which includes the construction contingency and the design contingency.
We checked with council and we agreed that we didn't need to include the construction contingency in that the 3 million budget. So we have one option that's just under and one option that's just over, and the total new construction is over by the largest amount.
Ask the general manager then, where does the 250,000 come from the construction contingency? Where are we taking that from, or where are we getting that money from?
Through the chair, that'd be something that council will resolve when they get a design that they're happy with. Okay. So at this point in time, a spread of options have been provided to council for their consideration. As part of putting the QS together, there's been a contingency placed in there for a number of things as outlined by Coffee, and that would need to be considered as part of detailing the design in which council prefer it going
But
forward.
from what I understand from Coffee, they're saying that their project cost is based on the fact that council itself will wear the 250,000 outside the grant. That's what I'm understanding. That's what they say their instructions were. Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
I didn't know that council was putting in 250,000 as the contingency, or that was anticipated when we went out to the coffees at this stage. That's what I'm saying.
Noting, councillors, that you already have that money reserved as part of the ongoing process in the hub development,
Okay,
being now that money that you've
the 100,000
reserved as
yeah.
part of that, that
Okay,
process.
if that's where it's coming from, I'm happy with that.
Actually, it's 320,000
320,
we've got.
So some of that could pay for the fit up. If I could go to,
Can I just make a comment? There could be a number of things within this that pay for the fit out, once again, dependent on the option that is preferred by council in this instance.
So if I could please go to the assumptions and clarifications, which is 2.2. And it's on page, well, they're not page numbered, sorry. Page 2 of the executive summary.
The fourth last page in your document.
Thank you. The third bullet point says we have included a provisional sum allowance of 5,000 for contaminated material. However, the exclusions exclude disposal of contaminated in-ground material. So are you saying the 5,000 is for everything but the disposal of it? It's for the removal of the asbestos and placing it in council truck, or what's that mean?
The difference is the disposal of contaminated in-ground material. So that's material actually in-ground that we may come across that we're not aware of at the moment. The allowance that we have included is for the removal of asbestos that is on council's known asbestos register. So there are a couple of eaves and things, a small amount, low risk materials that we've allowed for removal safely before we do any further demolition or any further work.
And the fourth bullet point, external walls have been assumed to be lightweight external walls with ColourBond cladding or similar. Can you give us examples of what you mean the lightweight external walls will be? Noting that if option 1A or 2A is taken up, in relation to existing buildings, they are basically brick. So, and option 3 is obviously a new build completely. But let's look at 1A and 2A. What are you assuming that the lightweight external walls will be constructed of? You can give us several options, examples.
Yeah, so examples of that is that, it's a single story building. So a lot of our walls, new walls, any new walls, can be lightweight steel rather than the thicker structural steel. We believe that we could do that, and for costing purposes, we've allowed for the cladding material to be ColourBond, so it is quite cost effective, but we can still, the architects can still work it to make it look quite nice. And in that point as well, we've also assumed for cost purposes that any new walls could be roughly 50% windows. But again, that's details that are still to be worked through post this concept stage.
So if we were to match in with existing building structures which are brick, that would be more expensive?
Well, the architects tell us that when you're doing old against new, it's not a good idea to try and match it and blend it in, because you may not ever achieve that perfect match. So making it deliberately different is what they recommend, and that is what we've kind of looked at and priced. So it would be, if it was, for example, option 1, the 2 existing brick buildings, they're similar brick color. We would be kind of matching and merging the 2 of those, if you can recall that render, with our new building connecting the 2. That would look new on the outside. However, everything on the inside would obviously look new and all freshly painted
Yeah, not just to chime in there. Obviously, we're at the concept stage, and it was a starting point to be able to establish some high-level costs. There could be a combination of some lightweight walls and lightweight cladding. There could be a combination of some other masonry as well, if that becomes a more cost-effective way to work with the structural design that would come with this project, which obviously we don't have at this point. The lightweight walls mentioned in this report also refer to the fact that we're not looking at heavy masonry structural walls at all. Single story, it's a lightweight roof, so we could use stud framework to hold up our new elements, whether it's option 1, 2, or 3. And we feel at this early stage that mixing a lightweight cladding, whether it's a painted material or it's color bond or it's something else, would work in with the 3 forms that we're looking at in terms of the planning. But very early days, and I suppose structural design and other elements would impact this. But it's an allowance now that probably, without sounding like a quantity surveyor, these aren't probably huge elements in terms of costs waiving. If one wall ended up being a brick wall or a big veneer wall or something, it's probably not going to make huge differences to the overall budget. It's just a starting point to be able to get some rates. There's a design contingency in there, which we talked about, which can go up and down depending on if you take away or add on to it. So,
the glazing, the new glazing,
Mm-hmm.
is it single glazed, double glazed, triple glazed?
Double glazed.
Double glazed. With the existing roofs, if option 1A or 2A is taken up, will that involve internal roof gutterings, noting the issues with snow in this area? Will you be joining in gullies that are over existing roof lines that will require a gutter?
potentially. We've noted that in the presentation. It says it's one of the constraints of dealing with existing buildings. There's a few dealing with existing buildings, but you're right in the fact that existing roof lines and existing pitches and guttering does become complicated. Again, it's we try and avoid it at all when we can, but there is potential that with the option 1, especially with the 2 roof lines that we're working with, that there would need to be some internal box gutters and things associated with the design.
And that could create problems in snow areas in particular.
Well, we would look at all those type of loads to make sure that the structure is strong enough to carry any of those potential snow loads.
That's right.
The next thing is, I note this, is there going to be any fixed shelving in the library, or it's all going to be considered as after build fit out, is it?
Well, we've kind of to keep the budget looked at reusing a lot of that type of loose furniture and fittings as possible, but there is the option, budget permitting, to look at additional or new items for the library fit out or elsewhere. So nothing's been, apart from trying to or allowing to reuse existing, nothing's been selected yet, just budget allocated.
In relation to the top bullet point on the next page, for the 20 kW solar power system, has a cost benefit analysis been looked at that in relation to the benefits to council over, say, a 5 to 10, well, having looked at this recently in relation to building work, in relation to a 3 to 7 year period, the benefits in relation to reduced power and a payback period for that, and is it separately cost in relation to getting rebates from the government if that's able to be achieved by council?
That level of detail we have not gone into yet, but we know of similar sized buildings that we can fit a 20 kilowatt system. If budget allows, I'd always endorse doing as much solar that we can fit. but we have not kind of done the cost benefit analysis to determine that we need an X amount size to cater for the expected power load from the use of the buildings.
Okay. In relation to the next bullet point, where you look at the ESD initiatives, I would have thought that one of the ESD initiatives would have been the double glazing. And
You're right. That could have been added to that point, but it is included, double glazing.
what, in relation to ESD, what insulation in, well, I suppose it depends on the cladding, but are you looking at R5 insulation on walls and ceilings?
I don't know the exact rating, but you know, there's enough allowance in there to do a high spec insulation. That'll be selected in that kind of detailed design phase, and obviously it would be looked at the location of Oberon, being, you know, those potentially hotter summers and colder winters than we get over in Sydney.
So the nominal allowance of 1,500 for small appliances, it says it does not cover the cost of specialist small appliances such as coffee machines. What does it cover?
It covers like microwaves, kettles, toaster, those type of smaller appliances. The selection of a coffee machine, if you're a coffee drinker, yeah, there's so many to choose from. It can be quite a task in itself, just agreeing a coffee machine.
And sorry, if I can go into the exclusions. The third last one, where it says long service levy. So does that mean that included in your costings for construction, you have not included the council's contribution to the building worker or construction workers long service levy?
That's correct. That's correct. Those type of fees have been excluded, as well as the kind of council DA fees as well.
So you've got authorities fees in your budget, which I noticed for each of them. You've got, where was it?
Oh, sorry, there is a little bit, isn't there? Yeah.
So I'm assuming that including the council DA as well, but it's not, it's for others?
No, it is. Sorry, you are right. It is council DA fees, but the last point there, if there's any other outside of that council developer internal management fees, that's not included.
Long service levy fee on the construction fees, how much, what percentage is that normally?
From memory, it's only a small percent, or 1.5%, but at this stage we don't have a firm construction fee, so we wouldn't be able to put a price on that yet.
I understand that, but we have a budget for a construction fee. Okay. In the option 1A costing breakdown, which is this document, item 4.02 is after hours. I'm assuming that's the after hours access, which is basically the entrance to the Robert Hooper Centre as it exists now, and modifications to that to make it after hours accessible. Is that right? For 6,000?
Yes, that would be for kind of you know, after hours accessible access. So if it was a card or a fob to swipe a door, that type of after hours access.
Okay, so the authority fees I was talking about are the fifth row from the bottom of that page, which I think was for option A, 29,108.
Yeah. I think that would also need to cover any of the water services fees, etc.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gibbons?
So the Chair, I just have one question with option 3. I don't know whether you can get the slide back up or not, but I think we spoke about it before, that it's the lack of building to the north to catch the sun. I mean, our winters here are 8 months, and I thought on option 3 showed it fairly well, but the building to me, I guess it's the nature of the block. It doesn't allow to really capture the sun, the light of the sun, and it just makes the place area. But you might be able to explain it better to me. It seems to be facing the west, and we know around here that if you can build to the north, it's a no-brainer. So that's the problem.
Happy to talk about that. One of the things that we've considered with the option 3 is also the usage of skylights. So although it's true that there's no window drawn in this scheme from the north, we were thinking that one of the options could be to have skylights on the top that could bring light into the room in a modern way, and also, although it's not drawn in the concept drawing in the design, that shouldn't really be much of a problem to actually have some kind of a high window catching the sun from this facade.
Yes, I just think that one needs more consideration anyhow, because it just moves in the northern sky all day for 6 months of the year, and it just gives the place an airy feeling, a lighter feeling, and less costly, unless there's another way, because otherwise you could have lights going on inside all day.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
Thank you. I have a minor one also, particularly considering option 1 and 2, and you did mention it this evening. In bringing the surfaces together, my personal preference would be a whole that we virtually render all brickwork to try to unify whatever it is we end up, if we end up choosing a building. You did say this evening that you did not think that would be a significant cost increase. Is that so?
I said that changing the wall type on some of the walls from a lightweight cladding to potentially a masonry could be a less significant cost than some other changes in terms of the changing of the design. I suppose the other point to make is at this point, in this conceptual point, which is we're up to, conceptual design, things like, do we render one of the buildings? Do we leave the other one brick? Do we do brick veneer for the new sections? I suppose those options in terms of the finer detail of a selected option in a schematic design and then developed design and then actual working drawings, there's still phases to go through and looking at those different options. At this stage, we've thrown an idea out that is mainly around planning. Admittedly, we just wanted to see how we can get these spaces to work around the constraints of existing and new. The materiality does need another round or two of refinement and looking at those options, the advantages, how it works with structure, how it works with even where windows are. We just talked about where the north is and things. So there is another round or two, definitely of design iteration. But just as a general note, I think if we had proposed to render and paint all existing brickwork, I think it could have been something that got stripped out when we went over budget, because rendering and painting all of the new bricks, all of the existing bricks would be a costly exercise, and ongoing maintenance and things in terms of painting the whole new and existing building potentially may not be a good cost-effective thing to do. But again, there's probably more options. There would definitely be more options within each of these options to explore in terms of materials, finishes, and form.
I appreciate all that. That's why I'm getting in early.
That's all right. Yeah, it's noted. Now it's minuted. Yeah.
You hadn't struck me until you said it then. How much exposed brick wall is there internally in any of these designs?
Nothing proposed at this point. There could be, but nothing. Yeah, nothing set in stone there.
Thanks, madam.
Any other comments, Councillor Lyon?
I just want to make a comment about the exclusions. You said the exclusion is commercial kitchen equipment. If this facility can cater for up to 200 or 300 people, you would that the regulations for a kitchen would be of commercial quality. Is that?
That's not necessarily true. Yes, your kitchen would need to be constructed with your coved skirtings and other things so that it can be easily cleaned. However, your equipment inside can be, I guess, to any level that you can afford. So with our budget restrictions, we looked at making sure that we had an allowance for good quality and a number of good quality large domestic appliances, because we feel that at this stage that would cater for the majority of uses of the building, being more of a reheat kitchen. We don't see that the budget would go as far as a commercial fit out kitchen in this space.
I think it's also worth noting that what the hub doesn't try to do is take over some other provision or some other facility that's capable of doing this, and a commercial kitchen would lead to having a competing interest against other privately owned options currently in the town.
If I am also allowed to intervene here, it's important to know that commercial kitchens, as we understand them, basically it's the one that it's in a restaurant, they need higher maintenance than normal kitchens, or the appliances need a different way of treating. So for example, it's really fascinating to see one of these dishwashers that go into a commercial kitchen that they wash the dishes in just 5 minutes or less. But this dishwasher needs high maintenance every day to switch it on and switch it off. So the idea here, it was to give a kitchen that it's usable and doesn't require much maintenance. That was one of the reasons why, for example, in the conversations that we had with the community, we were talking about the community requires for 2 dishwashers, but it will be residential, high grade residential dishwasher, not a commercial one.
Okay. Any other questions, councillors, before I go back to councillor?
I'd just like to ask, I know we're only at concept stage. Did they do any shooting of levels between the Hooper Centre floor and the existing library?
We didn't take any levels ourselves. We used survey information provided by council, which included the library and the Hooper Centre. And I don't recall the date, but that was actually only in the last year or two from memory. Does that sound right, Ewis?
Sorry.
Yes, it sounds right. We have we collected a fair bit of information from Oberon Council, including the original plans from the library. And within the information that it was shared with us, there was not detailed, but enough for this concept level survey, in which there was the consideration of the levels between the Bob Hooper, the library, and some points in the surrounds. That's what we've considered in order to make the connections and the length for the ramps.
Thank you. Last question, councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In relation to the options, in particular 1A and 2A, the function centres, function rooms have all been put on the northern side. That's correct?
Yes.
And I understand that from a design point of view and fitting everything in. My only concern is that the function centres won't be used all the time, whereas the library will. And one of, I think, the benefits of the library is it is on the northern side and does receive the sun, especially in the middle of winter, which can be quite nice. By pushing the library back into the centre of the building, it won't get that benefit. And I understand that some people, that if you necessarily too much sun, but also it is quite nice if you're reading a book to look up and look out occasionally, so you have a view out that window. Was any consideration given to that aspect? And the second thing is 1A and 2A, is it possible to put skylights in that centre atrium area? As you've suggested for option 3 earlier in the questions, to provide more light into that area.
I suppose the answer is probably Yeah, we can answer both with one statement. That yeah, the second question you asked, so definitely the skylights for that the library area. So with that library area, the general idea would be to try and get controlled light. We want to be able to ensure that we've got indirect where possible and even light across the spaces. So while it is good to look out, we would look to incorporate windows, but a window to the south in the in a library area where you can still get a lot of direct light with large scale windows is actually an easier thing to deal with in terms you don't have to stand up and walk away when it is the middle of summer and the sun's coming in. So skylights definitely to try and get even distributed light across the space. Even highlight windows can work in terms of having light that's shed across ceiling spaces. And that would come down to designing of the roof, looking at maybe lifting the roof in certain areas, certainly in the foyer, lifting a roof and looking at highlight windows there or just skylights. But the idea would be that that function room, while not used a lot, would benefit a lot from in terms of meeting rooms and different conferences to have that northern aspect in terms of light that you don't necessarily have to control because it's not a controlled sort of reading environment. Same with screens, people might be reading on their laptops or things in the library, and screens don't deal very well with direct sunlight as well. But yeah, that's generally the idea. But again, that the windows, letting light in, controlling light, that is probably part of the future design phases, and it's just easier to control when it's not directly to the north.
Another benefit of shifting the library into the other area is that it allows us to try and keep the library function, albeit in maybe a smaller capacity, while we do the construction works around it. There's still a lot to work through for that, but that would the idea of that is that we can then almost finish the new library area and get them relocated into it and try and then continue to work around them so that they are operational throughout the full construction.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. It's gone on a wee bit longer than envisaged. So thank you, Simon, Kieran and Eunice. I believe you're leaving the meeting now, but we are going to bring this, hopefully bring this item forward if you wish to stay on for the discussion. So thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron. Thank you.
Am I right to keep going? Okay, councillors, we're back to the normal business. We're on page 6, item 7, questions from the public. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the newly legislated state government requirements, the December Ordinary Council meeting is being undertaken as a virtual meeting conducted using webinar facilities. The General Manager has requested that all questions from the public must be submitted in writing prior to 1 p.m. on Tuesday the 15th of December 2020. Members of the public who submit a question to Council are permitted to do so, provided the following guidelines are adhered to. The person lodging the question must advise of their name and in what capacity they are acting. That they must advise Council if they have prior consent or authority if acting for another person. Questions from the public is not an opportunity for debate with elected representatives or staff. It's an opportunity for the community to ask a question in relation to an issue or put a point of view relating to an issue that may be causing interest or concern. Due to time constraints, a time frame of 3 minutes per speaker is allocated. The General Manager will read out any questions submitted at this point in time. Questions will be taken on notice and a response provided within a reasonable time frame. To the General Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. At this point in time, we've had 5 questions from the public that have asked to be read out. I'll do them one at a time. The first one is from Rosalind Stanby, who acts by herself. As a former Oberon resident, I regularly visit the Oberon Cemetery. Of late, I've noticed several concerning things that I want to bring to your attention. I believe a cemetery should be a calm, restful place, somewhere that not only acts as a sign of respect for our loved ones who have passed, but also somewhere to sit with someone's memories. Quiet contemplation, however, is not possible at the Oberon Cemetery. As there are reeds growing around graves and gardens, the rose garden is unkept, and the niche wall is dusty and not maintained as well as being overgrown and with unsightly weeds. There is only one water tank to service the entire cemetery. This is old and difficult to use. Furthermore, there is insufficient seating and the distinct lack of shade. There are not enough bins to dispose of rotting flowers, and the bins that are there go unemptied for long periods of time. I've also noticed some things that I believe are not safe. I've seen council staff driving mowers and earth-moving equipment carelessly, sometimes causing damage to graves and the surrounding terrain. In addition to this, there are large rocks, rabbit holes and a tree stump close to the niche wall, which I believe would prove to be a dangerous tripping hazard. At the lawn cemetery ground, it is uneven. Some graves have large mounds of earth, while some have subsided, leaving large divots in the earth. This is upsetting, unsightly and dangerous. I think council needs to address these issues. I think it's important to remember that there are many of the graves contain the people who built Oberon, the planners, the landowners and the characters without whom we would not have a town of today. But not maintaining their resting place show them the lack of respect. As you would be aware, the cemetery is of great historical significance, not only Oberon but the Central West, with some sites dating back to the 1800s. Perhaps these issues could be resolved through heritage grants, a work for the Dole program, involvement of local schools or correctional facilities. I feel that a beautification landscaping plan would greatly enhance this area. I would like to acknowledge the fantastic work by Marjorie Armstrong and Lynn Aglin, who identified and placed plaques on previously unmarked graves throughout the cemetery. The long hours of sorting through old records and identifying the sites is to be commended. The newly completed tar roads and signage are great additions to the Oberon Cemetery. I'm sure many residents would like to congratulate Oberon Council for the added functionality and accessibility this has provided. Unfortunately, the new tar roads doesn't take away the unkept ugliness of the cemetery. After a little investigation of another cemetery in the Central West, I've spoken to groundkeeping staff about council's commitment to make the area beautiful, restful and a wonderful kept area. Yes, this is Bathurst. I feel you need to take a drive to the Bathurst Cemetery. The area is beautiful, the grass cut, shaded areas, plenty of garbage bins, seating for reflecting and beautiful landscaping. The whole area is very well kept and the rotting flowers are disposed of by staff a month after the burial. Thank you.
Would you take that on notice?
The matter's been taken on notice and will be answered through the Director of Technical Services, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Was there a question there?
No, it's just a statement.
The second one is from Hardy Droham, who is commenting on the Hub business paper attachment 1301 with particular focus on the survey. I've written before on the validity of the survey. The following points ought to be considered in the decision-making process by councillors. Firstly, the consultant had two distinctly different surveys in use. While the questions of both online and hard copy versions were the same, the possible answers were not. This required both survey options to be modified during the analysis to accommodate the differences. Only the hard copy version was included in the report. The online version was omitted, presumably to avoid highlighted and obvious differences. The survey being manipulated after the results are in the requiring the answers to be changed to fit the questions does not pass the pub test. It does not if the intent was the same. Manipulating a survey once the results have been collated is an admission that the initial survey design was unprofessional and not fit for purpose. Secondly, page 6 declares the online survey is limited to one survey per device. This is incorrect. Multiple responses were easily possible from one PC. This is a well-known flaw of the software, putting the validity of the survey into doubt. The same line of reasoning applies to the collation of hard copy surveys. One person could have easily handed in identical copies at the library and the council chambers. Thirdly, page 16 declares all comments from both the online and hard copy surveys listed. This is also not correct. A number of comments have been excluded, putting the validity of the survey into doubt. It is disappointing that after widespread publicity, only 127 responses were at hand. A public meeting may ought have brought about a different scenario. Many residents expressing their views verbally without necessarily completing a survey. Basing such large investment and future operating costs on 76% equaling 96 respondents saying they want it strikes me as rather dangerous. 41% of online respondents disagreed with Dart Street, whereas 86 of the hard copy respondents said agree. The survey did not explain why there is such a significant bias towards both survey methods. The similarities to the SRC fluoride survey are obvious. Parts of the community are split, which in the past made councils maintain the status quo rather than focusing on the decision. Such obvious bias between online and hard copy should ring alarm bells for councils. The opinions for alternate locations show the locations were chosen to showcase council determination to support the Dart Street site. CLC, Black Springs, Malachi and RSL are nothing but a smokescreen. The vast majority of users of the library/community centre would arrive by car using the 600-metre distance to reject the Vic site, or to have been followed up with an analysis showing how many visitors actually arrived by foot. The distance from town to the off-leash area brought about the statement, most people drive there anyway, so distance doesn't matter. Why is the hub any different? Parking residential streets around the fitness centre is already impacting nearby residents. The cost of all these auxiliary services must be included in the business case, showing the overall costing prior to councillors voting.
Thank you. Mr. Draheim's opinion is noted.
The third one is from Mr. Hardy Dryham on behalf of OSRA. Dear Gary, there are two administrative issues I would like to share with you and bring your attention, both relating to statements made at the November council meeting regarding murky water issue. Perhaps both could be addressed at the December meeting. Council staff responded to OSRA's contribution, stating there have been a connection between the Zeeweed manganese iron filtration plant and the failed surface water harvesting project. It was alleged the 50% capacity increase was not done due to the harvesting project not eventuating. Relevant screenshots show that firstly, OSRA did not make any such connection. The suggestion was made by staff. Our submission did not mention this project at all. The response to the mayor asking if there was indeed a connection resulting in the affirmative response by yourself appears to have been mistaken. You may wish to correct this for the councillors who appear to have been given incorrect information based on some vague memory of staff who were not even present. The Zeeweed plant was installed in 2001, long before the surface water harvesting project was on the table, after extremely low dam levels in 2010, causing grave concern. Plants like the Zeeweed filtration plant are usually conceptualised catering for future capacity increases if required. Documents from council meetings confirm the project scope by Lee Robbins in June 2010. Neither yourself, having commenced in 2011, Maya Sadowitz or senior staff were involved at that stage. The final scope was refined in July 2010. There was no mention anywhere that the surface water runoff was to be pumped to the Zeeweed plant. The 200 megalitre a year were to be collected in a pond in Queen Street, pumped to a pond near Albion Street, packaged with a standalone treatment plant before being pumped to the timber complex. The Golf Course expressed a desire to obtain the water. This appears to be only after the federal and state grants were obtained. Council solicited the OTC for quantitative and qualitative expectations under GM Alan Carney in 2012. Only current councillors Ian Danny, Clive McCarthy and Kerry Gibbons were in the chambers during that period. The project was closed by council staff claiming adverse financial impacts after the election bringing a change of direction. The surface water harvesting project had no impact on inbuilt 50% design capacity margin of the Zeeweed system. Apart from faulty memories, it defies logic to pump 200 megalitres from the WTP. It also defies logic to filter it for iron and manganese without either having it tested for actual water quality during the scoping stage or even being demanded by the OTC unless unless council have records showing such points were considered. Secondly, Deputy Mayor Kellum announced on November 17 that the residents connected to the RWS will receive a 4% rebate. Unless OSRA is mistaken, there is not a motion before council that makes the decision or any public debates to explain why this rebate is being offered and how the figure of 4% comes about. The topic discussed in November council closed session, item 1601, did not bring about a statement by the mayor, added to the Zoom recording after the closed session ended, and OSRA would expect to be the proper process. The mooted report explaining the facts and analysis for the quantitative rebates by staff promised for the December meeting is yet to be made public. A further announcement was made by Mayor Sajewicz in a weekly news on the 26th of November. OSRA believes Councillor Sajewicz and Deputy Mayor Kellum released information discussed in closed section without being any reference to or the decision or authorisation to release it to the public. You may wish to ensure that council records are corrected as required and the council is informed accordingly.
Mr. Draheim's opinion is noted.
The fourth question or comment comes from Sig Sovak, who wished to make comment on the Hub business paper and speaks only on the financials. The Indoor Fitness Centre commenced with a 500k grant in 2018 and opened in October 2020 for a total outlay of almost $1 million. It is unclear how council complied with the present policy where sources of fund for the project must be identified before it could be put for councillors for decision. Not yet approved grants do not count as source of funds for the commitment of expenditure. The hub design options are high-level concept only and the project costing is provisional. Though I note that even at its early stage, the project is above 3.1 million approved grant funding. I understand that the main grant provisions included that no further grants would be forthcoming. Atlas Group lists a range of cost uncertainties and costs that have been excluded. To give a flavour of the issue, such things as loose furnishings, including library shelving, is not included, nor is CCTV or AV equipment, nor is price level escalations. The design contingency calculation is not standard. No cost is provided for upgrades of the site services. Based on previous independent work on combining the Hooper and library, I suspect the costs of stitching two old buildings in option 1A and 2A and the groundwork for services for 3A are underestimated. Cost of service distributions during the construction is not included. Coffee correctly notes that sufficient public and private meeting space already exists to cover needs. The literacy inclined will continue to avail themselves at nil cost to Oberon of the collections at the Bathurst Library. Council's Code of Meeting Practices requires that all funding for projects be identified and declared before a binding decision is made by the councillors to commit the expenditure. Such funds need to be adequate to enable functional completion of the project and must all include all incremental costs associated with the project. The council proposes to go to tender in April 2021. To responsibly develop a proposal from the concept stage to the tender stage requires that a detailed architectural work and engineering design are completed. In a process that involves key milestones for costing, checking to assure acceptable financial cost and design outcomes. Professional practice is to commission formal cost reviews at 50% and 75% of documentation, plus detailed pre-tender cost estimates. This will ensure the project is viable and that all cost projects, including all out-of-contract expenses, are accounted for. Apart from the fact that council is personally, fiduciarily responsibilities for spending money, it is also unethical for council to go to builders and contractors without ensuring that adequate funds are available to commit to the project, considering how much work needs to be done by reputable tenders to give a binding response. While not project costs per se, council should also look at their decisions to include consideration of incremental annual operating expenditure following from implementation of the project.
Thank you. Mr. Sovik's opinions are also noted.
The final question from the public comes from the O'Connell Valley Community Group. The O'Connell Valley Community Group would like to ask council why a modification to DA 10/2007-132-4 relocated proposed lot 2 of a subdivision was only notified to adjacent landowners and not all landowners bordering the 4 properties of the DA. This is not a new DA, but a modification and as such, all parties bordering the DA should receive a notice. Question 1, can council provide a list of landowners, addresses that received notification, and what process was used to determine notification to all parties? The modification application asked for the application to be considered under section 4.551A of the Environmental Planning Assessment Act and is considered to be of minimal environmental impact. On the basis that the modification is essentially the same as the development and the consent was granted in 2007. Question 2, the modification and owner is relying on the EPA Act, and we would ask why the modification is not being considered under the updated Oberon LEP 2013. This will be taken on notice and reported back to the group with the adequate response.
Thank you. We now go to item 8, confirmation of minutes, councillors. The recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 17th of November 2020 be confirmed. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Capel and a seconder, Councillor Kelly. Thank you. Any business arising?
I have some matters, but they'll come up in the appropriate section later on, Madam Mayor.
All in favour that the minutes be accepted? Carried, thank you. Can I have a mover that we bring forward item 1301 from page 22, please? Councillor Kellam and a seconder, Councillor McKibben. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. We now go to page 22. Item 1301, reports of decision, Oberon Community Hub. There is a recommendation there that council approved concept design option for progression to stage 2, and that council nominate the open tendering method as prescribed in accordance with clause 166(a) of the Local Government Regulation 2005 for stage 2, design and construct. I would like to put forward an alternate motion that council approve concept design option 1A for progression to stage 2. That council nominate the open tendering method as prescribed in accordance with clause 166(a) of the Local Government Regulation 2005 for stage 2, design and construction. 3, that council place the preferred option on public exhibition until the end of January. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Doney. I'd like to speak to the motion. It's my view that 1A meets the brief that we've given to Coffey and the architect as far as cost is concerned. Demolition of just one building, being the dentist surgery, is preferable to the demolishing of the community centre, which was not popular with the community in the community survey. The space in option 1A appears to be adequate to needs, and I've talked to the librarian about this and several members of the community. I think that the preferred option needs to be placed on public exhibition before moving to stage 2, the design and construct stage, for the benefit of our community to have a look and a further opportunity to comment. The design and construct phase is when details can be decided upon, smaller details. We have to be aware, councillors, that the timeline completion of this project is mid-2022. They're my reasons for the alternate motion. Councillor Doney, do you have something to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First off, to the public exhibition, I think I raised that at the last meeting as a thought bubble. I'm very pleased that the public gets another look at this. I know it will invite a strong comment, but I'm also aware that the balance of that comment is constructive and in support of this project. So it's good for people to have a little bit more input into it, talk about it. As for the design itself, I did wrestle significantly with between 1 and 2. One does try to tie together existing buildings, and I hope we can make that attractive externally. I think we can, particularly I was raising the issue of trying to blend the external surfaces. And also on all the statistics, it gives us the most bang for the buck in terms of square meterage. I think it's down a little bit on the library, but I think it's up on one of the other key ones. So I think on balance, when you match that with cost as well, I'm very pleased to support your motion.
Thank you. Councillor Keller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also support all 3 sections of the motion you put forward. I think option 1A is within the current budget. I think the issues of the design contingency, construction contingency, and also the fact that there's $250,000 set aside within the concept design for landscaping gives us a reasonable amount of room to move. And noting this is the concept design, there is much detailed design to go in, and I think using the basis of 1A, we will probably end up, I think, with a good, functional and attractive design.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, like the 2 former speakers, support the 3 aspects of the recommendations you've proposed. As has been stated, I think we get the best bang for the dollar for option 1A. But also, I think with appropriate, as I indicated, I'm a little worried about the light aspect, because I think one aspect of the library at the moment facing north is that in winter you do get some sun into it. And I am slightly concerned that the library is now sort of moved towards the southeastern end a little. However, leaving that aside, I also like the concept of 1A in that, unlike 2A, you don't have a right angle in the foyer. What we've got in 1A around the library area is the centre passage, but it's more like an atrium. And I think it's going to be much more inviting to walk into from Fleming Street, or the corner of Fleming Street and Dart Street, and also where it proposes to go back up through here to the main street. I think that's going to be much better with a straight through area. And I think maybe we look at skylights in the area, because I think that's going to be a very appealing atrium. When I looked at the second option, 2A, I actually didn't like the right angle in it. I thought it was it's not going to have the light coming in both ends. I don't think it's going to be as attractive. The only area I had concern, and I raised it in my questions, was I'm always a bit scared about, from an engineering perspective, about box gutters and joining roofs, because especially where you have a snow load. It's a weak point in a building. If there's deluges of rain, the box cutters can often leak. I think that's only one aspect we have to look at carefully, because from experience, I know that it can always be a weak point in a building, and if there's an overflow of guttering, that's where it occurs, and it occurs in the middle of the building and cause damage, so we have to look at that carefully. And we do have 2 relatively good serviceable buildings, I think, and I would commend the architects. I think what they've done there is good. I agree with Councillor Doney in that I think we do have to be careful about the finishes on the external parts of the building and ensuring blending. Unless it's done appropriately, I'm not a great supporter of colour-bond walls, I have to say. I know we're trying to blend 2 buildings together, and often something new, as they've said, is good because you're not trying to match either. But I do think we maybe should look a little bit more carefully at the materials we use for doing that. Option 3, I know it looks like a state-of-the-art building, but I also looked at it and I've looked at sort of buildings similar. Sometimes these type of buildings date quite quickly and we have to be careful of that. I think certainly that option 1A it looks to be the way to go. It's within budget. Definitely the community survey indicated that they could see no reason to sort of knock down the existing 2 buildings. I think maybe with a 1A option, because you're keeping the existing buildings, it will end up that we may use more of our construction and design contingency than we may with a completely new building, but I think we have to wear that. And I think there may be in other areas cost savings that we can make. I don't know if, and this is outside this brief, as to whether any of the furnishings from the existing library can be reused, but we certainly need to look at that. I think on the cost savings, I think, and I have had some experience with this recently with supermarkets. We are able to pay back putting solar cells on 2 supermarkets within 2 years, total cost. And that's because running refrigeration and freezers, big users of electricity during the day. This building is going to be used predominantly during the day. Biggest costs, heating winter, maybe air conditioning, depending on the necessity for it, are going to be during the day, which means you can have direct feed into the building. So there's usually cost savings where you can use that direct feed. If you can't direct feed, it's questionable whether the savings are there with solar. But anyway, that can be looked at further down the track when more details are looked at. But yes, Madam Mayor, I'd support your 3 recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, councillors? Councillor Gibbons.
Yes, I support the design option 1A. I don't think that the Bob Hooper Centre is a lot higher, and I can see in the foyer ramping up and running across there, so you have a split level effect, and I think that'd be great. I've seen it in other buildings, and I just think it'll work well in there, so I'm supporting that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCarthy.
I'm just wondering, in part of the system, can we make the brief that we keep the box gutters and that to a minimum? Because that's my greatest concern, that the water's going to come in this building with the skylights and things like that, and books and all that are in there, computers, and it happens. You've only got to get a hailstorm, your gutter's blocked up and the water comes in. So your brief is the steepness of your roof. It should be part of a brief that they should be looking at for us.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor McKechnie?
Yes, excuse me. I support the 3 recommendations, and I think option 1 basically the best because it's the closest to our budget for a start. But I'd also like to just speak a little bit more on Councillor McCarthy's option in the box recommendation for the box covers. I've had a lot of experience with them in being an engineering manager for a lot of the big buildings in town, and they've all got box cutters. Maud's, Supermarket, the old golf club, which is now the bed and breakfast, the RSL club, all the factories over here, everywhere there's a change in level there's a box cutter, and not one of them don't block up and leak. They have caused considerable damage everywhere they are on large buildings. So we should avoid them at all costs. In 2021, there is no need for them. If there's a difference in levels in the roof there, it's quite a simple thing to do an umbrella type atrium over the top and use that as your gutter around and take away the split level roof. use the split level roof as a feature. As Councillor Gibbon said, it can be an architectural feature that doesn't have any functionality. I think we need to be extremely careful that we ride on them on the design on that. That's the only concern I have with option one. I can see it being an insurance disaster down the track. I've said it too many times. The only way to do it is to go over the top of it. I just did it at my home, put a complete new roof with larger trusses over the top, because when I extended, I put split levels and I didn't want a box cut.
We have a trust company in town.
Excuse me.
But I
councillors,
support
thank you.
the recommendation and especially support Councillor McKibben and Councillor McCarthy's points that we need to be very diligent in the design.
I'm sure if our architect and project people are listening to this, which I think they are, they'll take that on board. Okay, councillors, if there's no other comment, I'm going to put.
Just what do they plan to divide these petitions with? In the
Internally?
concept? Yes. Are they solid doors?
That will come out in the design and construct stage.
Okay, but it's just interesting to know how they're going to facilitate it. You just can't have a curtain.
Excuse me. No, it's not a curtain.
And the things still function. That's what I'm getting at.
Can we take that on notice and get an answer for you, councillor?
Well, yeah, we need to, because other than that, those three spaces become nothing.
That's right. I'm going to put the recommendation, councillors. All in favour of the recommendation in 3 parts. Carried unanimously. Thank you. We now go back to our normal business paper. We're on page 6, mayoral minute, item 0901. There's a recommendation there that the report is received as information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Capel and Councillor Gibbon, thank you. Councillor Capel.
No, I don't have anything to say, Madam Mayor. Just another busy month for you, and I took on board your direction to councillors and asked any questions before the meeting.
You did, thank you. Councillor McKibben.
No, Madam Mayor, I've read through this, and it's, as I said, a lot of correspondence in a busy month.
Thank you. I will just note, in representation on the 28th of November, Skoda and Charter Museum, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kellam, actually attended that event, not myself. Is there any other comments, Councillor Donny?
I'm glad that Councillor Capel has left more room for me. That's a good thing. Just quickly, galloping governance, are they connected to a way forward for our play centre issue at all?
They are connected, yes they are.
And the community garden concept, 25th of November meeting, Janelle Lawrence. What's the progression of that?
25th of
November, sorry.
We have a community member that would like to facilitate a community garden near where she lives, and Councillor Lyon and I went down to visit her to find out what her ideas were, and we're going to get back to her with some information in the new year.
Yes, sorry. And just can you give us any information on the correspondence of the 13th of November, Robin Brunton, into relation to development compliance issues?
This was a correspondence from the Bruntons pointing out where they did not think council were complying with their planning laws.
And can you tell us a bit what is there any further activity in that space?
Can I forward you the letter? I believe this matter is in court.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lyon, did you have something?
I was just going to mention about that visit with Janelle Lawrence.
Excuse me.
I'll take that to the garden club also, and I've looked at the map of the area, and I don't think it's really suitable. And I think our problem here in Oberon is most people have a garden. But I might look at building Janelle a garden.
Okay, so when we go back to her.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor White. Any other comments here, Councillor? Recommendation, all in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. Page 11, councillors, item 10, there are no notice of motions. Item 11, 1101, councillor and delegates reports. Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. The recommendation is the report is received as information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McKibben, thank you, and Councillor Domi, thank you. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, obviously the commentary on the New South Wales Annual Conference for Local Government is very informative, and I move the recommendation be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Domi.
Madam Mayor, what's the criteria of the AR Blewett Awards?
The AR Blewett Awards are for, there's three, isn't there? They're for achievement in local government.
Just to follow
Okay.
up on that one, Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
how do they work? How's the
There are criteria around it. I haven't got it in my head just at the moment, but I can certainly give you the information. Do you,
Yeah,
the General
so-
Manager may know more?
Sure, I can give a brief overview, and it's councils can nominate themselves to be part of that. There is a number of requirements that you need to meet in applying. You apply yourself and a number of people who represent the Blewett Trust look at those submissions and allocate a winner based on those submissions received.
It's around achievement. I've got them at home. I can certainly forward them for you if you're interested.
I think it's something that we should look at because it's a prestigious award. You get to put the sign up at the entry to town. I think we should consider nominating.
Another sign?
Any other comments on this one, councillors?
We've only just got you.
Put the recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you.
It's only a little-
Page 12, item 1102, Upper Macquarie County Council meeting. The recommendation is there that report item 1102 is received as information. A mover, please. Councillor McKibben and Councillor Capel, thank you. Councillor McKibben.
Oh, a very extensive report by my colleague, Councillor Capel, of 2 meetings.
Is that it?
That's it, Madam Mayor. It speaks for itself.
Councillor Capel?
And I must apologise for the length of it. I didn't mean to send the minutes.
That's fine, it's
I
informative.
actually did the second part, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, did you?
That's why it's so lengthy.
Thank you both.
I had a nice short one, Madam Mayor, and
What are you saying? I had a long one.
Any other comment, councillor? Councillor Gibbons?
Yeah, just so the chair like to comment. It's very informative, and I think good things are happening there, and we're well represented, and there's movement there.
I would, if I could just make a comment, if anyone is interested in the Chilean needlegrass, I think the field day on the 7th of December at 9:30, I think it's just near Hereford Street, is well worth going to. The identification of this weed is very hard. If you actually drive in Bathurst, you will know bits of it all around the city. And I think it's only a matter of time before it ends up in this area. And the identification of it is particularly hard, and it will cause significant damage to our sheep industry in particular, our fat lamb industry. It penetrates the skin of sheep and can cause infection and make the coats worthless. It's a really, it's a nasty weed.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments on this one, councillors? Put the recommendation, all in favour? All in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 15, councillors, item 1103, Central New South Wales Joint Organisation Board Meeting, 4th of December 2020. The recommendation is that the report item be received as information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Gibbons, thank you. Councillor Kellam, thank you. Councillor Gibbons.
It's through the chair. No, it's good reading. I just seen the bottom of page 15 where the Murray-Darling Basin Authority could be visiting our region. We're trying to catch up with them.
We are going to do this through our JO, but anyone can go. So keep you abreast of that.
And on the next page, near the notes, we're talking about the intermodal. Is that train and road or train from they're talking there, or both? Vital in
the intermodal transport links.
Did you get on that at all?
This was mostly train that they were discussing at this meeting. Yes.
I thought the pace was a bit quick.
And road. It does cover road as well. The 1 hour from the new airport to Lisco, everybody thought was a little bit
short,
far-fetched. But anyway, it was an interesting talk.
Yeah.
What was that comment, Madam Mayor?
Their aim of this group is to establish a high-speed 1 hour link between the new Western Sydney Airport and Lisco in 1 hour.
Can be done with a tunnel.
So it's a combination of,
Can be done with.
and it's a group of businessmen that are trying to promote this, and they're looking for council's support to put business cases together and do research and things like that.
Thank you, Madam
You
Mayor.
might like to give them our paper.
Sorry?
You might like to give them our paper
Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea.
as an overall contribution.
Tunnel paper, yeah. Yep.
Sorry, Madam.
Given
I was interested to see page 16, the Hall tool, and I'm not sure if I read it here or in the attached minutes, that they're looking at obviously the Great Western Highway, and we've looked at the tunnel under Blackheath, and I think the community in Blackheath has said that they want the long tunnel, which is 4.5 kilometres, from what I understand, and that will make a significant difference. And obviously part of the road is a new ascent of the Blue, or ascent descent of the Blue Mountains that circumvents Mount Victoria. But also I note that the comment about the 100-kilometre Bells line of way, Bells Road, and I'm assuming that means from the M7 all the way through to Lithgow, 100 kilometres they're going to try and make. Is that right? How are they going to go through Currajong and areas like that? That was how I read it.
No, I don't think that's the case. They were talking about securing entry on the Hawkesbury.
To the Bells line?
Yeah, securing land now to make this flow better. No, I really can't recall that, but I read go back to my notes. But I read it. Do you recall, Councillor Callum?
I was pretty clear at the time that he was talking about literally the Bells line of road,
established
not the Currajong Road or Windsor Road or any of those other ones.
So starting at around the Bilping area or a bit before.
Or wherever like the Bells line road starts not far beyond Richmond.
That's right.
Yeah. But it wasn't
up Belbert Hill or anything.
No,
because that's going to be very hard.
Yeah.
No, they're trying to establish a different link onto the Bells line of road than that one.
Yeah.
So its plans are underway from about 100-kilometre limit for the length of the Bells line of road. Safety upgrades are underway, including overtaking lanes.
That's currently.
Are there new overtaking lanes being installed? I haven't seen any lately.
Well, that's what he told us, that they're underway. I haven't been down there lately.
It was 3 weeks ago. I didn't think I saw it.
Maybe you can bring a report back and we can question it.
Perhaps you were travelling too far.
One of the speed limits have gone down.
80.
Yes.
Any other questions on this one, councillors? I'll put the recommendation. All in favour. Carried. Thank you. Committee reports, councillors, on page 18, item 1201, Oberon Youth Council. There's a recommendation there that council receive the report item as information. That council approve the Oberon Youth Council hold one meeting per year in Barraga, Black Springs and O'Connell villages, and that the Oberon Youth Council meetings be held on the 4th Tuesday each month at 6 p.m. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Capel, and a seconder, Councillor Kellam. Thank you. Councillor Capel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The reason behind this is that, firstly, the moving the meetings to the Tuesday instead of the Wednesday was because it suited more of the people. There's a couple of them have got jobs and It's, you can't come on Wednesdays. And they agreed that to have a meeting in the villages would be good. It's going to be a long way for them to go down to Burriga, but anyway, because there are a number of their peers who live out in the villages who don't have the opportunity to come into town and at that time of day to attend the meetings and the activities of the Youth Council. I think it's a bit interesting that the council has to approve of those changes, but that's the way it is. So I hope the council does approve it.
I think the initiative to hold meetings in the villages once a year is an excellent initiative, and I support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Manuel. I think the involvement of the Youth Council in the community hub and their opinions on it, and I'm getting quite excited about it, I think, is really, really good. And I thank Councillor Capel and the Youth Council for getting really behind that.
Thank you.
I might say on that, Madam Mayor, if I may, that we had a really good session. We had a Zoom meeting with these fellows zoomed into the Youth Council meeting, and there's some very good discussion and a lot of good ideas from the youth councillors about the sort of things that they would like to see in the youth area. I think it was very productive, and I applaud the way that the fellows handled it too, because they asked some really good questions and followed up and really brought the young people out. They were a bit slow to get started, but there was some very good discussion.
Good, thank you. Any other comments, councillors? Put the recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 1301 we've done. Page 25, councillors, 1302, audited 2019-20 financial statements. The recommendation is that council place the audited 2019 financial statements on public display for 28 days from the 17th of December 2020. A mover, please. Councillor Kellam, thank you, and Councillor McKibben. Councillor Kellam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is pretty straightforward. It is a procedural process we're resolving here, but I would note that I'm very pleased that staff resisted the move by the Audit Office to not have the Understanding Council's financial statements page removed. I think having that in there, making financial statements more understandable for everyone is an excellent idea.
I agree.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I applaud that. I don't know why they would have asked the Understanding Council's financial statements part be removed. I'm also questioning why they wanted the notes contained in the statements removed, because my understanding of financial accounts is the notes are as important in some ways as the statement. So I think that council should, general manager maybe should be directed to ask the Audit Office in a letter why this was necessary. I think we should approve the financial accounts, but no problem with that. But I just think a question as to why, because normal company accounts and everything else always have notes. They're really important.
Could the director possibly assist with an explanation?
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, there was no explanation provided from the Audit Office. Happy to follow up with their prior to their presentation in February.
I think we should ask for written reasons if we could get it, because it doesn't make sense to me. You were present, so yeah.
Any other questions or comments on this one, Councillor Gibbons?
I think I'm in the right area. Just on page 70, I think. Just an observation that our water rates, is it that we've made about 876,000 per year?
Are you in the attachments, Councillor?
Yeah, attachments, yeah.
The audited financial statement.
Yeah. And only observation, if I'm reading it right, is that right, that there was a profit made on water rates per year? Or yeah,
Did you hear that, to the director?
Yes, Madam Mayor, through you. So it's not profit, that's the income that was received.
So running, yeah, right now. That's we running at a profit. On our water. Is that what that's mean?
It has to run at a balance, doesn't it?
Has to be
Has to
cost
be
negative.
balanced.
Whatever income we have, that goes back into the restricted for that fund.
So that's what goes into restricted. Thank you.
Right, councillor? Any other questions or queries on this one? Councillor Donny?
Madam Mayor, I know it's just on page 44 of the attachments. I know it's beating a drum that I think has been beaten every time we've looked at financial statements. I know there are multiple legislative and contractual restrictions on the general manager, but you know, the leave provisions that the council has are fairly big. And even though by when last time we asked the auditor said that, you know, they're within reasonable standards across councils, still feel it is something that we should be constantly diligent in attempting to reduce that liability as far as we can.
Thank you, councillor.
And I support the question on notes. I mean, often, really, some of the more important stuff is in the note than in the numbers. So I find that quite odd.
Thank you. If no other comments, I'll put the recommendation, councillors. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, councillor Donny. Your complaint?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just, can I?
Yep.
Oh, yes, forgive me. I was just like, I vote yes.
Page 26, item 1303. Development application 10.2020.73.1, single-storey dwelling with attached garage. The recommendation is that council vary part C.5.5 of the building height plane of its current DCP 2001 associated to development application 10.2020.73.1 for construction of a single-storey dwelling with attached garage at lot 13 in DP 1139404, being known as 9 Stevenson Close, Oberon, and that a division be called in accordance with section 375A of the Local Government Act 1993. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McKechnie, thank you. And a seconder, please, councillors. Councillor Gibbons, thank you. Councillor McKechnie, do you wish to speak to the recommendation?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I support the Building and Health Surveyor's recommendation that the variation be approved. The block is, even though it's a little over 800 square metres, is the amount of it that you can use to build a substantial house of this size is limited because of the location of the sewer main in the front right-hand corner. And there's also a couple of, it's an unusual block because it slopes from north to south across this way and also from east to west back down. So obviously they want to push the house back into the northeastern corner. It's there's been no objections from any notifications as yet, and it's a new area and it's a house in keeping with the area, and I think there's no reason why it shouldn't be approved.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Gibbons.
Yeah, for the same reasons as Councillor McKechnie, I support the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that the period for submissions closed on the 11th of December 2020. I'm wondering if I can ask the acting planning director whether there were any objections by that date, noting that date has passed.
Through the mayor and the general manager.
Sorry.
There was no submissions received during that period.
Thank you. That was my question.
Any other comments, councillors? Put the recommendation. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Page 33, councillors, item 1304, development application 10/2020.84.1 shed. The recommendation is that council vary part C55 building height plane of its current DCP 2001 associated to development application 10.2020.84.1 for construction of a shed at lot 8 in DP 249130, being known as 1 Tarranar Road, Oberon, and that a division is called in accordance with section 375A of the Local Government Act 1993. Do I have a mover? Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Capel. Thank you. Councillor McCarthy, wish to speak to the motion.
It's pretty straightforward, Madam Mayor. It's just a small variation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Capel.
Yes, it is a small variation. It's an interesting one to read about. It's an odd looking block, but it doesn't look like a big deal what they want to do, and I'm quite happy.
Thank you. Any other comments on this one, Councillor? Councillor McKechnie.
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's similar to the other one in that they want to maximise their investment and place the shed in a section that's going to give them a little more green space, and I think it's a minor variation, so again, it should be approved.
Thank you. Any other comments on this one? I'll put the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And page 38, councillors, item 1305, development application 1305. Oh no, development application 10.2020.63.1, new dwelling. The recommendation is the council vary clauses C55 building height plane and C63 density control on lot A in DP 972259 to allow a reduced setback of 1 metre on the western boundary and floor space ration of 0.4051. That council approved development application 10/2020-631 for a new dwelling in lot A in DP 972259, being known as 85 Oberon Street, Oberon, in accordance with section 416 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979, and conditions contained within this report for the following reasons. The development is permissible with consent in the B2 local centre zone of the Oberon Local Environmental Plan 2013. The development meets the objectives of the Oberon Local Environmental Plan 2013 and the Oberon Development Control Plan 2001. That a variation to clause C55 and C63 of the Oberon Development Control Plan 2001 is considered acceptable in this instance, as neighbouring properties will be unreasonably impacted. That overall the development will not detract from the locality and conversion to a commercial use in the future, if possible, if desired. 3, a division be called in accordance with section 375A of the Local Government Act 1993. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Kellam, and a seconder, please. Councillor McKechnie. Councillor Kellam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's interesting to see a residential development there, but it's also pleasing to see a new building appearing in town. I think dot point 4 and 2 will not be unreasonably impacted.
I stumbled over that.
And Madam Mayor, it's also on page 46, third bullet point under item 23. Same wording. And I was going to have to raise that in a minute because I couldn't accept it with the words will be unreasonably. Both of them refer to the
Page 46.
Page 46 under item 21,
Yep,
conclusion and recommendations. I think it's third bullet point, and a variation to clause C55 and C63 of the Oberon Development Control Plan 2001 is considered acceptable in this instance. And then it says, as neighbouring properties will be unreasonably impacted.
I
think the word not is missing.
I think
will not be unreasonably.
I think the intent was to have not in there.
Not be.
And we will make that.
I can confirm, councillors, that is the case.
So I support this recommendation.
With the amendment.
We will have
With that minor amendment.
Thank you. Councillor McKechnie.
Yes, I fully support the recommendation. It's good to see some of those vacant blocks in the lower end of the main street being taken up, and anything that improves the look along the streetscape there is good.
It's going to be an interesting dwelling looking.
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
block. Councillor Donian.
Yes, Madam Mayor. B2 local centre zone. No, I automatically assumed it was commercial, but when I read B2 local centre zone, information, what's the difference between local centre zone and commercial?
Through the chair, minor. B2 allows for mixed use, and sometimes that is a blend of commercial and residential associated uses. But that doesn't preclude your city centre from also allowing, it's just generally up rather than out. We have commercial on the bottom floor and residence above it. So there isn't a great deal of differences. I'm sure there's some prohibitions that I can't put my finger on at this point in time, but that's generally the analysis is that it still allows for a mixed use development.
Mixed use. The shed up the other end of in Carrington that was redone. Is that commercial down the bottom and residential at the top?
At the top of Carrington up here, no, straight residential.
Thank you,
Any
Madam.
other comments on this one, councillors? Councillor McCarthy.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I noticed all the conditions that are placed on this, but is there any suggestion that the front windows need to be double glazed in respect that this house is in between the Royal Hotel and the RSL, and that's traversed, and we've received complaints in the past?
It's it says on page 42 that double glazed windows are proposed to ensure that noise from the industrial area is mitigated
And is it,
to a suitable level.
5.6.
Okay.
6.6 on page 42.
Okay, no, I must have missed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this one, councillors? Put the recommendation, all in favour? Okay, thank you. Page 58, councillors. Item 1306. Development application 10/2020.65.1 new dwelling. The recommendation is that council vary the minimum allotment size of the RU1 primary production zone by 3% at lot 100 in DP 1260070 to allow a dwelling to be permissible on 97 hectares, consistent with clause 4.6 of the Oberon Local Environmental Plan 2013. The council approved development application 102020.65.1 for a new dwelling at lot 100 in DP 1260070, being known as 170 Arkstone Rose, Isabella, in accordance with section 4.16 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979 and conditions contained within this report for the following reasons. The development is consistent with the Oberon Local Environmental Plan 2013 if a variation to the minimum allotment size is within the 10% threshold prescribed by clause 4.6 has been approved by council. That the development is consistent with all relevant controls of the Oberon Development Control Plan 2001. That overall the impact of the new dwelling is negligible on the subject land and the locality, and that a division be called in accordance with section 375A of the Local Government Act 1993. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor McKibben, thank you, and Councillor Calvin. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, we're talking about a difference of only 3 hectares. Obviously, this has been approved previously for a previous dwelling, and basically the same conditions apply. It's actually quite good to see that the village of area around Arkstone is growing. You might have to put new signs up soon. The only thing I would comment is I think the recommendation should be listed as 1, 2 and 3 rather than 4, 5 and 6.
I will tell you, councillors, that the printing had a wee hiccup this month through the system. You might find little anomalies throughout much the chagrin of our executive assistants.
So having read through all of this and knowing what has been approved previously, I would move the recommendation, the 3 parts of the recommendation. I'll call them 1, 2 and 3 if I may, for approval by council.
Thank you. Councillor Kellam.
Happy to support it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors?
We sort of
Councillor
knew this was
McCarthy?
coming when we approved the subdivision, didn't we?
That's right.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments, councillors? The recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 74. Item 1307, water usage drought assistance. There's a recommendation that council finalise the drought subsidy program effective immediately. That council remove the ability to source water from the Black Springs and O'Connell water bores and provide direction to the community to access water from the Oberon North Street facility. That council provide a time period of 6 months for all cards to be returned to council with a full bond return. That upon proof of purchase, bracket receipt, council refund all unconsumed water at the rate it was purchased. That any card not surrendered within the specified time frame, no bond will be provided. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Capel and Councillor McKibben.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I was going to propose that each of these recommendations be considered separately, if I may.
I'll second that. If you also second it.
So we first need to move the recommendation.
Sorry.
Then we could do it.
Well, I can't second it if I'm moving it.
Councillor Capel, are you happy to still move that recommendation?
Yeah, no, it doesn't worry me if we want to do it one at a time.
Is there a quick way to do this? I'll take advice.
Can
Can we move straight away that we deal with them separately?
If you get a mover and a seconder for all 5, you do them in the one motion unless you get an amendment.
Councillor
to deal
McKibben
with them
wants
that way.
them dealt with
I
separately.
propose that we treat it separately.
So either way, like if
So-
you just want to look at them separately, look at them separately,
Well, to save time, then we'll just
go straight to separately.
go straight to separately. So I've got a motion to deal separately with the seconder, Councillor McCarthy. All in favour? Carried, thank you. Okay. So the recommendation is that council finalise the drought subsidy program effective immediately. Thank you.
I'll move that.
Councillor McKibben, and a seconder, please. Councillor McKibben.
Look, I think the situation has dramatically changed in the Oberon area. Basically, we may have to review this if we go into drought type conditions and farm dams again become dry. But I think the current conditions, it is appropriate that this be basically finalised at this moment.
You, Councillor Capel, you have to
Yes,
speak.
Madam Mayor, I concur with that. It's been a terrific help to a lot of people, but I think the time has come to an end, and as Councillor McKibben said, if necessary, we can review it again when the need be. But yeah.
Any comment on this one, councillors? Number 1, Councillor Killam.
I support Councillor Capel and other speakers. It was a very successful program. It was designed to get people, particularly who are obviously rural residents who are on tank water, because they were getting exorbitant charges to get water delivered, and this solved a fairly significant problem for them, and also provided a great deal of assistance to the community. And I note that we were the first council in the Central West to move on such a program, and others followed.
I agree with all speakers, and I think the community has much appreciated this initiative.
They have.
Any other comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation. 1, all in favour. Carried, thank you. 2, that council remove the ability to source water from the Black Springs and O'Connell water bores and provide direction to the community to access water from the Oberon North Street facility. A mover, please. Councillor Capel, do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Thank you. Councillor Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The way things have gone, as we just talked about, I don't think there's any need for people to access water from either of those places. However, I'm sure that they'll be the water from both of those places will be available for emergency services if necessary.
Thank you. Councillor Donny.
Just recovering from the music, Madam Mayor. I support Councillor April's logic. I think generally drawing back on that emergency assistance and drawing from water from either at a cheap price or from the artesian resources should be further restricted now that we are in a little bit more rain.
Any other comments, Councillor McKibben?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to ask through you, if I could. The dam currently is at 32.9%. So if people are sourcing water and they come back to the North Street facility, they're actually drawing on the dam, which is, I'd still say, at less than an optimum level. My question is, would it not be better if people are sourcing water to do it from Black Springs and O'Connell water bores rather than to deplete our dam? I can completely understand if our dam was at 90% or 80%, but we are at 31.8%. I know that probably, and I don't know, that a lot of people aren't sourcing water at the moment, but it worries me that if they do source water, it's only going to deplete our dam further. I also understand there's a cost of, obviously, the administration for Black Springs and O'Connell water bores of continuing keeping them open, except for emergency purposes. So through you, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to make, on those aspects, if the General Manager would be able to comment.
Through the Mayor, the reason for the proposed recommendation is simply for control purposes. The cards that are currently out there do not have this is only accessible via this particular system. Like they're a unique, they're a combined system that allows people to use the cards at each of those systems. In order to have a control over the system, the North Street system is the only one that will allow us to continue to do that, which is why for the time being, we're proposing to shut those two systems off. And yes, they will be available for emergency purposes, but that's the reason behind the recommendation as it sits. In terms of, is it draining the dam? What the North Street service provides for is a potable reticulated source of water from our allocation that we're allowed and pay for from Water New South Wales. The other two are not. So it's unregulated and unrestricted.
I understand that, but the dam's still not optimum.
I understand that, and councillors, it's gone from 33.1 to 32.9%, 32.5%.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was my concern. It's the dam level, purely the dam level.
I note that the water being drawn is minimal, though.
Yes, that's what I was.
And this can always be revisited.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I'm happy with that. On that basis, I think I'm happy. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any other, Councillor Donny?
I was just going to make the observation, as is often pointed out by a member of the community who follows our water uses, Mayor Keen Gardner, and even including Black Springs and O'Connell, what the town draws from our water supply is never the problem. Our usage from our water supply, if we were the only users of the water from the dam, we would not have problems. Yep. So the issues lie elsewhere.
Councillor McCarthy, did you want to say?
Yeah, for convenience sake, shouldn't we be keeping these two spots open? Like we talk about the environment and all this. That means the people have got to come all the way into Oberon, 21 kilometres from Black Springs, or they've got to come up from O'Connell. Surely goodness we can levy the card so that they pay a reasonable amount or a commercial rate and the facility remain open. Remember, it's their money that paid for this thing, not ours. It's the community that paid for this, whether it be the grant, it's their money. So I think we should keep it open myself. Whether we change the price per litre on the card or whatever, I don't care. But I think for convenience sake, they own it. Community own these things. They expect it to be there to be there for them. And that's why they supported it. And I think it should be kept open myself.
Come back to you.
Through the chair, my comment in that instance is that this was a drought initiative that we originally put in place, and our control over the two remote bores is limited. The second thing is we do not have the ability to now put a new charge on those two bores, because when people purchase water, they purchased litres of water, not put dollars on their cards to change it. So that was the process that was set up at the time. So the purchase of litres rather than changing the price is difficult in this instance.
That's for paper.
So when people purchase the water, they purchase litres of water.
But you put the, so if someone comes, sorry, no, through you.
I'll just go to Councillor Capel first. Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say. And now is the ideal time to do it, when the season is good, there's plenty of water, and not forgetting that it's non-potable water that comes out of those bores, and so suitable only for stock water. And I don't think there would be anybody carting stock water at the moment in this area. So now's the ideal time to do it, to get control of those cards again, and then we can review it in the future if there is a demand starting to appear for people needing stock water. We can look at opening, giving access to those two bores again.
Thank you. Had you finished? I'm sorry, Councillor.
No, I disagree with that. To just say that it's for palatable water, and the other ones too weren't. Some people are down there trying to hold on to their fruit trees, and they know that they're supplementing with pelicans and things like that. The money is minimal. Like I don't see that as a big thing, because what do we spend down there on the card reader at O'Connell? $16,000 for it, correct?
Yeah, around that.
So there was the money on there. The difference between them getting the drought money or paying the commercial rate is minuscule. All I see that the people using it at the moment are trying to keep their drinking water because they know it could turn dry, and they're therefore going out and saving their trees and saving what we want them to do, keep their trees alive, by just going up there and getting a couple of pelicans of water a week, and we've taken that away from them. They've got to drag their trailers and that up to Oberon, when that facility, they own it, the community owns it, should be kept available for them.
Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam. Sorry, my understanding is if I've got a card and I come to council now and say I want to buy, let's say, 20,000 litres of water, I will be charged, what is it, $2.97, not the previously subsidised rate.
$3, isn't it?
$3, yes.
$3, yeah. Sorry. So that means I'm paying the full price, as I should be, because of what we've done with the Resolution 1. I completely agree with that.
So through Resolution 1, you will now pay $5.80.
Right, $5.80. Sorry,
that's the concession
right
removed.
But if I want to buy the water at that price and I have the card and I come in, and we've spent a lot on the readers at both O'Connell and Black Springs, and I go to Black Springs and I put the card through and I'm paying for 20,000 litres at $5.80 or whatever it is. I don't understand. I understand the position in relation to people who've already got litres on their cards.
Correct.
But we spend a lot on these readers. So what we're going to do is turn the system off and say, right, if you want water, you've got to come to Oberon now. But my question is, if I'm prepared to pay the $5.80 for 20,000 litres and get Campbell, or whatever his name is, Campbell to do the carding, why shouldn't, what's the problem with using the expensive readers at Black Springs to then get my 20,000 litres? Because is the real question is you want people to bring their cards back and change them so they've got a new card if they want to purchase at the new price. Can't we just, and this maybe goes further into resolutions 2, 3, 4 and 5, but I'm not understanding why, if there's a potential for people to buy in the future, they return their card. Why would we just not say that if you've got litres now on your card, let's say 3,000 litres, because of the price differential, you can now only get 500 litres with that money. I'm just trying to understand, because we have the readers, we have the system. I would have thought the system should have been set up to adapt for this sort of situation, because I would have expected members of the community to be able to hold on to that card. And if a drought comes again, then they say, come to council and say, here's my card, I want to buy 3,000, and the person at reception says, okay, you know, it's $5.80, council hasn't resolved yet to reduce the price. I go out to Black Springs and fill my vehicle up with 20,000 litres, having deposited whatever I do at the amount of money for it at council.
Couple of answers to that question. And the first one is that North Street is a potable supply of water. It's a drinking water, which you originally wanted to implement. The two are non-potable, and currently there was a charge on it at raw water rate. So it's a minimal charge. So if someone bought that water at that minimal charge, they buy 20,000 litres of water at a minimal charge, which costs them $4, for lack of a better word. The whole idea about removing this at this point in time is to say to people, if they want to exploit that, they exploit it from the North Street supply rather than the remote supplies. Right, so you can still use your card because you've purchased that water at that rate. What we're trying to do is minimise the exploitation of those two bores at this point in time. And you can't do that through a pricing, because the way the card readers were set up is that at the time you bought litres of water and put that on your card, not put $20 worth of water on your card and put that through the system, because the way the system's set up is that you go there and you put 1,000 litres and it cuts out at 1,000 litres, not $2.50 and it cuts out at $2.50 worth of water. So this risk recommendation is a way of minimising that in the initial instance, and then as the report indicates, council can then, through a different assessment, look at when you activate those systems again. If council resolve not to do that, then that probably exposes you to a number of things.
Thank you, Mary. Through you, if I could. So I understand exactly what the general manager. My problem is that what we've been through is not going to be the first or last drought. I would have thought that we should have a system that is flexible enough, and as we spent a considerable amount on the readers at both locations, that is flexible enough to be able to adapt to what we have just talked about. Because when we have a drought next time, we're probably going to be offering subsidised water. We're going to get to the same situation after the drought we are in tonight. So we should be able to issue cards to the community whereby we can change the value of the water, change what's on there. You know, how are we going to do this in the future? Because I just don't, I just don't see what we're offering at the moment, or what we're proposing is going to be a final solution to this. And I would suggest that maybe we need an item 6 that council investigate a system which can be more flexibly designed using the current readers that will adapt to the situation we're actually discussing tonight with droughts and then moving out of droughts, so that people can use, that the cards can be adapted flexibly to cope with this. And I really don't want to have to put in new readers considering the expense we've done.
Sorry, Councillor Cameron.
Madam Mayor, what I have great sympathy for what Councillor Tibben's talking about. The real question is, though, is it possible to adapt these quite expensive card readers to load dollars, not litres? And if that is the case, if that is possible, the solution to this is that we keep Black Springs and O'Connell going, and if we lose a few bucks, so be it. We then have a reduced time period to return your cards, get new cards, which are dollar denominated, and you can get a refund for the water you purchased, whatever, in fact, basically the same item 3. But that is predicated on the ability to load dollars and not litres. And until we know whether that is possible, we're not really in a good position to make a decision.
No. Through the chair, the recommendations were set up on the basis that this initiative was put in to support people's drinking water in drought scenarios, and the O'Connell and Black Springs bores are not potable supplies. So that's the other issue.
But that is also, and that's true, but they are non-potable supplies, and within reason they should be denominated at a different price.
Correct.
And let's if we accept that that's an issue, let's give ourselves a couple of months and let people use it at whatever price they're getting it at. But we need to understand, can we reprogram the system to work on dollar denomination so that when we change the price, it doesn't get silly as it is at the moment.
So
Can I ask, is that possible at the moment?
Yeah, through the chair, I think it's software related in terms of obviously leaders and leaders dispensed, certainly in the correlation of what these bores are capable of in the software component. Not unlike, I suppose, Wi-Fi these days in terms of Coke machines, for example, and taking your phone there and purchasing a can of Coke. I don't think the technology exists at the minute. And then again, the other issue, taking into consideration not all these water bores all the time are in serviceable areas or areas of mobile service. So it is something that we can take on board, look at what possibilities there are in upgrading these card readers, in terms of correlating it back to relevance in terms of dollar purchase versus litres. But at this stage, I'm not quite sure that these particular machines, in terms of the software, are capable of going to a dollar.
Okay, until what I'm trying to avoid is the shutting down of the boards, and I'm not convinced it's a good idea. And how we avoid that is we just accept we're going to take a loss and make sure we've got a system in 6 months' time or 3 months' time when we've taken all the cards back that we can actually denominate it in dollars. And until we know that, we're just going to faff around, frankly.
Or implement the recommendation that's been put in front of you.
Councillor Capel.
Or not.
This is something that we've got to look at next time that there's a serious drought. We instituted this process because we had a very, very serious drought of the nature that we've never had before. So, you know, this might not come up again. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. But in the short term, perhaps we might be able to do something a little bit more drastic. And that is, say you can give notice that say at the end of January, we cancel all cards. All cards come back in. Those who have got a credit on them get a refund. And if they want a new card, they get another card at the going rate. Just call all the cards back in for a credit. Cancel all cards. Simple.
Isn't that what we're actually? Isn't that what we're actually saying here
Yeah,
in
but we're
3,
doing it-
4, and 5, but over a longer time frame than you're
Yeah.
suggesting?
Yeah, let's do it more quickly.
And keep the O'Connell and Black Springs bores going.
Well, we had 4 customers last month. So it doesn't matter much whether they keep going or not. It's not. And something else that concerns me is non-potable water. And there's non-potable water going out of those bores that's going into water tanks. Does that give any, does council have any responsibility about people taking non-potable water out there and using it for things they shouldn't? It's all right if they put it on trees or feed it to cows.
Again, through the chair, there's signage there to, advise of that health regulation. So we can't police that once it leaves the site, unfortunately.
Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we can't change the software and the readers, we can have a validity date and renewable date put on the cards, I would have thought.
Through the chair, my understanding is it's like a magnetic loading when it comes into the counter.
Yeah, and like a credit card, you can put a validity period on.
Through the chair, my understanding is that the cards that are out there we can't do that.
No, but you could with new issued cards.
Correct. Yep.
So if we get all the cards in,
yep,
and we have to reissue cards, and that's why I was making a recommendation 6 weeks, because I think we need to devise this system, even if we do what each of the 2, 3, 4, and 5 ask, is we need to devise a system that is more flexible for when we hit this situation again, so that we can have cards that have a validity date, or we have cards that are dollar denominated, if that's not, which I think is the preferential one. But if we can't do that, then we have a system which has a validity date on the cards, and maybe they have to be renewed every 3 or 6 months or something. And at least in that case, we have control, much more control over the situation. Or some other way to get where we are, because I see that what the ultimate position would be that someone has a card that they can use during drought times. They've paid a bond for it. Most of the year most times it'll be sitting there, but when they have to drought, they don't have to go through the whole, or somehow they can be remotely activated or something. We need to work a system that better fits the requirements, I think.
Councillor McKechnie. Councillor McCarthy.
Madam Mayor, the issue I find is not the money, the cards or anything. I agree with Mark Callum this time, which is odd. This is a facility for the people.
That's right.
And that's what was given the money from the drought assist, not the drought, the $1 million thing, to create a facility. And that's what it's there. And we're going to take it away for dollars. Leave the facility open. That's all I'm saying, is whether you've got to take a fall or you go and rearrange the cards, the facility's there. It's there for the people. It's proposed for the people. Leave it there for them.
Just, I'm on another bit of a different limb here, but we have major roadworks going on out there very shortly, and why couldn't this be used to fill our tankers? We've had to run back to town to get water, to water the roads. I'm not sure whether the forestry is going to let us into their paddocks or not with fire danger, and why couldn't we be using that to fill up our water cards?
Through the chair, there's no reason you can't. It's
So
currently happening.
Okay, councillors.
Yep, only the
Sorry,
capacity
councillor.
issue.
I'm going to, what we are discussing here is item 2. The council remove the ability to source water from Black Springs and O'Connell water bores and provide direction to the community to access water from the Oberon North Street facility. I'm going to put that recommendation. All in favour? Against? That motion is defeated. We now go to number 3. Council provide a time period of 6 months for all cards to be returned to council with a full bond return. Do I have a mover? No mover, councillor Kellam. Do I have a seconder? Have no seconder. I'll second that motion. Let's have a discussion. Councillor Kellam.
I think the question here is not whether it's 6 months, but whether what we need to do is return all the cards, refund the bond and any litres or any cash value that is on that card, and what we do next. And what we do next is have a system which is flexible, is dollar denominated rather than litres denominated, and can allow for changes in what council may determine in a future drought we should be charging for potable water, and what we should be charging for non-potable water from Black Springs and O'Connell. So I think, in fact, item 3 should be a little bit further down the list, and we need to direct the general manager to initiate an investigation in how to provide a card system for water from North Street, O'Connell and Black Springs.
Sorry, I was going to propose this as an amendment, Madam Mayor.
Moving an amendment.
Councillor Kellam.
Sorry, can I-
You've got the floor.
So initiate an investigation how to provide a flexible card system to allow for dollar denominations for water to be drawn from potable water from North Street and non-potable water from Black Springs and O'Connell.
Are you proposing an amendment?
I'm proposing that as an amendment.
If you propose the motion, you can't propose the amendment.
Okay.
He's proposing.
I was going to propose the
Kellam
amendment.
can
He's
say-
actually
yeah.
proposing a changed wording to his motion.
Isn't that an
Okay,
amendment?
okay, councillors,
Does it reflect any part of the motion that we're looking at?
we're not changing the actual motion. But I'm happy for somebody else to propose this amendment. And the amendment is councillor given.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I would propose the council provide a time period of 3 months for all cards to be returned to council, bracket with a full bond return, and that the general manager be directed to investigate an update an upgrade of the current system to allow for pricing of water to be modified on cards for North Street, Black Springs and O'Connell, and that provides flexibility for future drought periods. That is my proposed amendment. I'd seek a second.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Capel.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Can I just get an understanding of what Andrew's trying to do?
Yeah. Can we just
So he's
get,
only saying it only happens in drought periods. What about when it's just dry and not declared a drought?
I'm happy for that change and provides flexibility for future use of those facilities. Does that help?
Yep, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy with that.
you happy with that,
Sorry, good.
councillor Capel? Councillor Capel, do you
I
wish
agree.
to speak to this?
No, thank you.
No. Does anybody else wish to speak to this? Councillor Jones.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just to make the observation that this was an innovative drought program, and that I'm not sure that it makes good sense to make that drought program a regular feature? Over the whole scheme of the motions, you know, the situation has not, I mean, the dams are full, the grass is growing, but the dam's low. It's raining in Queensland, but it's not raining here. I just feel that this is not as responsible as we should be with this one. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else speaking to this, either for or against it? Are you happy with your clarification, Councillor McCarthy?
Yes, I'm more than happy, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put the amendment that council provide a time period of 3 months for all cars to be returned to council with a full bond return, and that the general manager be requested to investigate an upgrade to the current system to allow for pricing of water to be modified on North Street, Black Springs and O'Connell. That provides flexibility for future use of those facilities. I'm putting that recommendation, councillors. All in favour? Against? Councillor Doney is against. The amendment's carried and becomes the motion. All in favour of the motion? Against? Councillor Doney is against the motion. Number 4, upon proof of purchase receipt, council refund all unconsumed water at the rate it was purchased. A mover, please. Councillor Capel and Councillor McKibben.
Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor. I might have to declare an interest because I've actually got money on my card. Do you want me to? I can lose that. Should I just wait out of the?
I think it would be safer.
Yes, all right, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a seconder?
That's why I
Councillor
split the motion
McCarthy.
as well, so I have an interest. Madam.
Don't get too far away because the minutes will take long.
The interest we declared at the beginning of the meeting,
Well,
while we're debating and had substantial.
I understand that, but better late than never.
Point of information.
Councillor McCarthy, I think, was.
Councillor McCarthy is now seconding.
Thank you.
Point of information, Madam Mayor, isn't this in conflict with the previous motion we just passed? Or somehow crossing over? Time period of 3 months for all cards to be returned?
Through the chair, the two, they were separated on the basis that one relates to bring your card back and get your bond back, which we put on each of the cards.
Yeah.
The second one relates to whether you wanted to include the allocation of water that still remains on the card as part of your motion, or whether as part of you wanted to just give them the bond back and not any of the allocation that's still on the card.
So you're going to give the bond and the allocation?
I would say in light of recommendation 3, you would now look at implementing recommendation 4.
Yeah.
Or in your instance, where you...
So again, you're giving the bond, the refund and the water.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it just seems fair and reasonable that if somebody's got a credit on their card, that we refund it. No more to say.
Councillor McCarthy?
I agree.
Any other comment on this one, councillors? I'll put the recommendation. All in favour? Against? Councillor Doney is against. Motion's carried.
Can you come
We
back?
ask Councillor McKibben to come back into the room.
I think he's gone to coffee.
We have noted your conflict, councillor, but it should have been done at the beginning of the meeting.
I realise that. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Number 5, any card not surrendered within the specified time frame, no bond will be provided. Do we have a mover? Councillor Capel, Councillor Kellam. Councillor Capel.
I don't think there's any need to debate that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Kellam.
Only comment I'll make, Madam Mayor, is I think we have actually arrived at a sensible water policy through this process.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors? Put the recommendation. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. 77, item 1308. Dual naming of Fisher Macquarie Rivers to include Womble. The recommendation is that council indicate to Bathurst Regional Council that this process should be undertaken through appropriate community consultation by the Geographic Names Board prior to providing an opinion being formulated for the dual naming of the Fish River Wambool. That council indicate to Bathurst Regional Council that given the Macquarie River does not transverse Oberon Council local government area, that no opinion is provided. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor McCarthy and Councillor Capel.
Kerry's before me, sorry. Kerry's. No, Kerry's up. Give him the credit.
Councillor Gibbons and Councillor Capel. Councillor Gibbons.
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation for all the reasons that's listed there below.
Councillor Capel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I agree with the recommendation. And while I have no problem with dual names for things, I think the important thing is that it is something that's going to be pushed by the community, and that includes our community if we're going to be supporting it.
Any other comments on this one, councillors? Put the Councillor McKibben.
Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering if we should be asking or putting a recommendation to Bathurst Regional Council that as Bathurst was named after Lord Bathurst, who was a main stalwart of the British colonial policy, that maybe they should consider naming their city Bathurst Wiradjuri. As a recommendation.
Take that as a comment, thank you, councillor. Any other comments on this one, councillors?
Yes,
Would you support?
I was trying to find out if Young is on a river. So we could suggest they change the Macquarie to the same name as the river that runs through Young, since Bathurst's suggestion was that they would be forever young.
I'm putting this recommendation in two parts, councillors. All in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 80, councillors, item 1309, Rural Fire Service Genola Brigade Station rebuild. The recommendation is that council nominate the open tendering method as prescribed in accordance with clause 166A of the Local Government Regulation 2005 for the provision of a new rural fire service building for the Genolan Brigade, located upon the former building footprint in Genolan Caves Trust Reserve. That at the conclusion of the tender period, a detailed report be brought back to council meeting of February 2021 with the adoption of a suitably qualified company to complete the construction of a new rural fire shed for the Genolan Brigade. Councillor McCarthy moving. A seconder, please. Councillor Kellam, thank you. Councillor McCarthy.
And it speaks for itself, and it's good that we've got a resolution.
Thank you. Councillor
Support the
Kellam.
recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments on this one, councillors? I'm putting the recommendation. All in favour? Carried, thank you. Reports for information, councillors. 83, item 1401, monthly activity report, General Manager. The recommendation is that report item 1401 is received as information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Doney and Councillor McKibben, thank you. Councillor Doney.
Madam Mayor, the only one that I really noticed here was, has anyone noticed the new sign on the entrance to Orange? Just
Yes, I have. Huge, very nice one.
Huge and very nice, did you say?
Stone.
Stone, it's just to draw people's attention to the Orange, which has done an extremely good job of marketing itself in many ways and creating a great deal of natural beauty around its town, has gone for just a simple straight stone wall with orange above it. It's pretty big, but just thinking about the style of it, we got fairly close with this.
I think they got fairly close to us.
On 87.
It's very simple.
Well, Terralga's another one.
But Orange you can see, unlike Terralga.
But we're on track.
Thank you. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have anything further. I think the signage situation is being rolled out very well and it's being appreciated by the villagers. It looks very smart.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor McCarthy.
Just on page 84, we're down to 78 employees. Weren't we up about 83 before?
Through the chair, it's average employees that changes each month.
I realise that, but I'm just wondering, are we losing outdoor staff? And that's why I know that the grass has grown phenomenally at the moment this year. we seem to be a little bit behind outdoors, that was all. I know you got
through the
casuals
chair,
on board.
through the chair, there's a number of reasons for that, including a pretty intense construction program, to name a few things, and ideal growing conditions for a number of grasses that are in our reserves. The ability to source contractors in this, the ability to source casuals in this time where current COVID mechanisms are in place has been difficult. But we're looking to rectify those through additional casuals where we can get hold of them.
Do we need another mowing tractor, as we didn't take full result of the bushfire money that we get on the state roads last year, did we? We didn't take advantage of all the money, did we? We never done the O'Connell Road to, what do you call it? We didn't do the 3 roads.
Through the
There was
chair,
money left over to the RFS.
through the chair, there was certainly a bit of money left over given the drought conditions and the lack of need for cutting vegetation, which we couldn't sort of make those claims. So,
Yep.
That's an unfortunate circumstance that we're in with drought-related conditions. But again, we're in an opposite position this year. So, certainly we look at machinery and ability to hire in if we require that. So.
Okay, I've never seen you hired in slashers or mower, that's all.
No, but if we need to, then certainly we have that ability to do so.
Okay.
So just an additional point is that what you'll also know is that this is around the time we would traditionally have pool staff, and pool staff now fall under a managed contract through the Y, so they don't become part of our full-time equivalents.
What I'm talking about is road vegetation, the comment from the lady out of Paul's Retreat about the way the cemetery was, loss of income that we could generate by the rural fire service. So are we looking at another mower tractor for this part of the season that we take advantage and recoup the money that's out there? That's all. Fair enough. Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Capel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just briefly like to us all to have a look at the economic development activities, but particularly the promotional stuff. There are some phenomenal results there. I think our team down at the Vic and the economic development people are doing a fantastic job. And the We Want You Back campaign was greatly successful, and the figures there, 360% increase in users of the website, 570% increase in the accommodation page. The town, every Saturday, the place is running red hot, and that just doesn't happen by accident. It's happened because there's been a fair bit of hard work and good work put into doing it. And every one of those people that comes into town, even if they only buy a cup of coffee, that's another cup of coffee that is being sold in the town. And I think a lot of them are spending a lot more than a cup of coffee.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, Councillor Gibbons?
Just on page 89, there's a couple of meetings. Any comments? The 11th of November with Jason Mulcahy and the Forestry Corporation.
Mulkenton, yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Mulkenton.
Through the chair, I had a meeting with Jason Mulkington together with the mayor, where we discussed many things, including some of the issues that council raised and asked me to forward on behalf of council. We discussed them and looking to have a reply to that correspondence sometime soon.
And the 30th of November on the same page, Central New South Wales Forestry Hub meeting. Similar.
Yes, through the mayor. Jason Mulkington was also involved in that meeting, together with myself, the mayor, and the New South Wales Forestry Hub group that previously has been indicated that the mayor and I sit as part of. This was a meeting that related to the general, the AGM for that group, as well as a general meeting to move and progress some of the recommendations that have been made to spend the money that has been provided by the government to look at forestry activity in these hubs.
There's a new general manager, isn't there, of that group?
Yes.
And United Timber of Barriga's been added, hasn't it?
Through
Not
the
at this point.
through the
It's
chair,
been a suggestion.
through the
Sorry.
chair, we have a managing director, I would suspect, that's been engaged to basically put all these projects together. The commentary that he made was that in our current hub, there could be or should be a consideration for further patronage of that. I must note that the mayor and I have been on this committee now for over 12 months, and 12 months ago we made exactly the same commentary. However, it's good to know that people in that same industry are now looking at outside the box thinking.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments, councillors? Just the recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 90, councillors, item 1402, monthly activity report, planning and development. The recommendation is that the report is received as information. Councillor McKibben, thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Capel, thank you. Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A detailed report. I would just, if I could, a couple of questions. In relation to the second paragraph under planned activity for November, the unauthorised, actually it's the first paragraph, the investigation of a pollution incident. Was that a sudden pollution incident, or was it an incident that may relate to the issues we've been having with the STP?
Through the chair, it was a sudden incident.
Sudden and actual, right. Yep. The second question is, the fourth paragraph is about the roaming dogs issue. We seem to have this obviously on under the monthly activity report, planning and development for some time. Is there going to be any ultimate resolution of this issue of these roaming dogs? And is it the same roaming dogs? Are we now talking about different roaming dogs? Is it the ones near Porter's Retreat and down that way?
So through the chair, the issue we have is that we don't know whether it's the same roaming dogs or different roaming dogs because they're the same breed, but no registration of those dogs. The fact that they're in the rural zone makes it a little bit more difficult. Based on some information that I've received, I'm looking at engaging with a potential group that may want to do a program out that way that could look at wild dogs in that locality.
Well, the wild dog group at Barriga, I know, is quite concerned.
Through the chair, maybe that's the group that I'm thinking of talking to.
The next issue, if I could, Madam Mayor, is the independent living units. Has an occupation certificate been issued for those yet?
Through the chair, no, it hasn't.
So when are we likely to see the review of costing and the review of schedule for those? Is it when an occupation certificate is issued? Because I note that a preliminary final inspection has occurred.
Yep, so it's through the chair. What council is trying to do is get this development to a point where a final occupation could be issued very quickly. The key component here is that the gas that's a problem that's yet to be connected to the site that we have no control over hasn't been provided. We've had a number of attempts, is what my understanding, and the latest one being that it was going to be put on last Thursday. However, the mains that they thought were in the street weren't in the street, and they would need to look at that. It was supposed to be connected on the Friday and wasn't. And we're looking at our processes now to escalate that to get it moved forward as quick as we possibly can.
So does that mean, are we going to be hit for a variation because the main wasn't in the street that was anticipated to be there for connection? Is that going to be, is there going to be a claim for an extension of time and a claim for a variation in cost?
My understanding through the chair is that that would be the gas authority's responsibility.
But that has delayed our completion, and the contractor may put the cost onto us, and then we have to put it back to the gas authority.
Through the chair, the contractor and council are working together to have this matter resolved as quick as we can. At this point in time, the only thing that doesn't work is the hot water in the units, and we can't have people in there without hot water.
Okay, you said there are a number of minor issues. Have they all been corrected other than the gas?
Through the chair, the minor issues would be dealt with as part of the final occupation. And it's my understanding that those matters have been met. Council will only go back there again now when we get the go-ahead from the gas authority to say that the gas is turned on and therefore the hot water is working.
Thank you. I move the recommendation that the report be accepted.
Thank you. Councillor Capel?
No, nothing.
Any other comments here, Councillor? Councillor McCarthy?
Isn't the gas in Ross Street? And maybe that we've got to dig the trench to get it onto the site? Is what happens lots of times in the past. But if you're a developer, private developer, and you had a block of 6 flats, wouldn't you be looking for compensation for the $100 a week you're going to miss out? So who do we go that for?
Through the chair, I'd have to take that on notice.
Hey?
I'd have to take that on notice.
The builder or into your gas, they'll just say you never applied early enough, won't they? But anyway, what I did notice though, when I was down there yesterday, is when it's not your own, you look around at different things. I think we've got a concrete post there, which is part of the fence. And when it was windy yesterday, the post just blowing. It's a fence. It should have been a post right to the ground. If you know what I mean, it's our fault. It's our design. And with the problems we've had, we must look at the time that the person that gave us the design of the units, the time taken. I understand that another person they'd done the job for, all the listing of the services was on the builder's document that went out, where the gas was available in the street, where the power was available, where the water was available. Same person, yet we seem to have copped a lemon, I don't know. And what did it take us, 6 months to get the plans drawn up on it? It was a long time. The excuse was that the legs were broken, but you'd nearly think when your legs are broken, you'd be sitting in front of the computer. But, you know, and that person done another job and done it pretty expedient for another person. But anyway, I just think the whole thing's been handled badly. And I also note the council haven't put the carports up yet, like the cemented areas there. That's something we could be doing now.
Excuse me.
Like, through the chair, I've noted an issue if they are constructed, which is why I've indicated that it should stop and we should need to have another look at that, the carports, in regard to the existing units.
I take that on board. I spoke to you yesterday, but where are you going to put them? Have a real good think. Go down to the site and have a look. Where are you going to put my car parks? The only place you can put them is on the cemented area where you're already cemented for them. There's no other option when you take the use of the shed. Apparently we're going to have 2 people use the shed. So you're restricted.
Any other comments on this one, Councillor?
Thank you.
I'm putting recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 95, councillors. Excuse me. Item 1403, monthly activity report, technical services. Recommendation is that the report item is received as information. Can I have someone to move that, please? Councillor Gibbons, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor McGibbon. Councillor Gibbons.
Nothing. I spoke with the director today to sort out some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGibbon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, a detailed report, and I would like to pass on through you to the Technical Services Director the appreciation of Burriga community of the work done on Judds Creek with the new culverts and fixing up the table drain that had become excessively deep as a result of gouging from storms. The cement put into it and the additional culvert work, it certainly looks to be an excellent job, and the Burriga community last Thursday night commented on specifically. Just wondering, and I realise council resources are very tied up at the moment, when the work on the other side of the Bull Hill will commence, where the landslip has occurred.
Yeah, through the chair, certainly got that program to happen. That will be with the assistance of some contractor engagement to do that. We were hoping to be there this side of Christmas, but it's not looking very certain at this stage. So high priority is where it ranks at this stage. So,
and sorry, it was also noted that the work on Arkstone Road with the culverts, etc., had been achieved and was looking good at this stage.
Great.
Yeah. So yeah, good work was noted there. I know it's not in our council area, but is there any, and I haven't been down the last week or so, but the work on the Jenolan Caves Road between Turnoff of Thuckmalloy Road and Hampton, is there any idea when that's been completed, or has it been completed? The stop go there.
Through the chair, I think it's ongoing at this stage.
So we have no estimate date, because that's causing quite a bit of inconvenience.
I read 5 months.
5 months.
I read 5 months.
Yeah, through the chair, I don't think it's anticipated until early March, April next year in terms of completion. So,
Thank you, Matt.
As progress gets reported back to us through transport, I'll endeavour to keep council updated.
Okay, yeah, okay. It might be an idea to do that either through Good News Week every month or something. Don't have to do it every time, but just if there's any updates, that would be good, because obviously it's our major transport route to Sydney and Blue Mountains. Thanks out to us too.
Councillor Kellum.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good report this month. A couple of highlights. I think the recreation ground fence at O'Connell is fabulous to see up there, and it'll be even better when it weathers in a bit. It's a bit brash at the moment, but that'll soften as time goes by. And I'm very pleased to see how much work was done on spray sealing Giffen Road. Getting up to 3 kilometres is a really good outcome. Well done.
Yep, Councillor Donny.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Just support Councillor Kellum's observation. People are pleased as punch. I too will be glad when it weathers down a bit. I'm very thankful we never installed the gate that came with that.
Excuse me.
One of the most garish things I've ever seen in my life. And, people are quite excited about it. The footpath has been issues been resolved, and folk are also very happy with that. I think there's a few minor things that, should others take that design up in the future, we can modify, but it's actually quite a good design to, that granite and cement mix. If you get it right, they get it right, it's really firm, it's unobtrusive, it's less sort of standoutish. And that, they're feeling rather spoilt down there at the moment. And then they took a drive down the Carlwood Road. We're very excited about, as someone said last night, the road just kept going. So that was pretty good. So yeah, they're really enjoying and thankful of those improvements in their community down there at the moment. So thanks very much to all concerned.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, just a good result out there at Ginkin Road. Mrs. Alquist pulled me up yesterday and said a great result, especially with the line marking on the corners. She feels a lot safer now that it's sealed and the marking. So she said there's no excuse for her safety now. So she thanks council very much.
Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the post and rail fence at O'Connell and it being extended obviously up Beaconsfield Road, I'm just wondering if Councillor Donny is thinking of creating a sort of horses and hounds group to go hunting or something in the area, because obviously post and rail fencing is very appropriate for that.
We shall be advertising for foxes shortly.
So councillors, I'm going to put the recommendation all in favour. Carried, thank you.
We've got them there, we just can't.
Carried,
catch them.
100 councillors, 1404
Quite a
monthly
bit, aren't they?
councillors, monthly activity report, corporate services. The recommendation is that the report item is received as information. Can I have someone to move that, please? Councillor McKibben and a second to Councillor Kellam. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A very informative report. I was just wondering through you, Madam Mayor, the director could give us an update on the information technology issue and the EMS working party, which seems to have been a bit split on the recommendations and where we're going to go with this. And I hope we're not going to have an undue delay because of obviously there are there's some division within the group as to which way we should go.
Go to the director.
Through you, Madam. Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. The working party have been working away, looking at 3 different systems. The division is purely on the basis of an understanding of what the programs, individual programs can do for all areas of council. Some are more developed in some areas than others. Hence why early next year, in early February, the working party will do a small road trip to have a look at councils who are actually using these systems.
So, Madam Mayor, when do we expect a decision? So we're looking at June?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the working party expect to provide a final recommendation to EMT in March.
And if it's not a unanimous, where do we go from there?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's something that the EMT will need to consider and make a decision on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the recommendation that the report be accepted by council.
Thank you. Any other comments on this one, Councillor?
Was I a second or a mover? Sorry.
You were a mover. Councillor Kellam, did you want to speak?
No, I support the recommendations.
I'm going. Oh, the General Manager's just asked me to mention a note, Australia Day. You do have to, it is a ticketed event, but if you're talking to anybody in the community, it's a free ticketed event. Just under COVID restrictions, we have to know numbers. So you just pick up a ticket. It's not, it's absolutely free. So we'll be highlighting that into the community over the next couple of weeks, in case there's any misunderstanding.
No, serious question. There's no limit. They haven't got, what's the current restrictions on?
The limit's changing all the time,
All the time.
but we don't think we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the recommendation, councillors, all in favour. Carried, thank you. Page 106, 1405, statement of investments. The recommendation is there that council receive the report as information. A mover, please. Councillor Capel, thank you, and Councillor Kellam, thank you. Councillor Capel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll move that council receive the report as information.
Thank you. Councillor Kellam.
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Any other comments? I'll put the recommendation, all in favour. Carried, thank you. Page 109, 1406, grants monthly update. The recommendation is that the report is received as information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McKibben, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Kellam, thank you. Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to the
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A very detailed report as always in relation to grants. Just a couple of matters of clarification, if I could, under successful grant applications and funding no division. No, I think it's actually page 112. Project implementation. Under 3A Drought Community Program Round 2, where it talks about the Burriga Hall upgrade. It was indicated the other night that the new equipment for the kitchen upgrade has not been purchased, and the only work that's being done today because of the extension of this grant is the floor sanding, which is currently being undertaken, and the electrical upgrade. The remainder of the work will not be undertaken and on the new equipment purchased until 2021 calendar year. In relation to page 113, I note for the Bushfire Local Economic Recovery Fund, the two projects that we're putting forward, actually council will not have an opportunity to see those, I'm assuming, before they are submitted by the 28th of January. The costings or the grant amounts. So that will go in without us looking at it, we assume. And the same with the under 5, the Your High Street pedestrian link, which I think we're designating as the link from Oberon Street here to the proposed new community hub. So both those will be submitted prior to us looking at them. Is that correct?
That, through the chair, that's correct. However, it has been provided to the council that we'll be looking at chasing funding opportunities for all these projects. The Your High Street funding, given that council has now endorsed an area, give council a little bit more scope to be able to look at that funding mechanism a lot more seriously than what it would have if you chose another location.
So through with the 1 million, if we apply for up to 1 million, would that include any other enhancements to the main street that we could include within that amount?
My understanding is that it could support beautification projects if that's where the council is looking to head. However, there has to be an emphasis on creating thoroughfares and linking areas. So it'd have to be looked at reasonably.
So paving wouldn't come into it?
Absolutely.
Do we have any budgetary amount as to how much we think the new link from here to the new hub would cost?
Through the chair at this point in time, no. But it's something we'll now go back to the architects and ask for a design or certainly some concepts around flow and how it would in fact link and meet the requirements that we need to service this grant funding opportunity.
So I assume that if it comes in at less than 1 million, which we'd hope it would, we have some other projects that might fill the remainder of the 1 million. Does it have to be a single project, or does it have to be a or can it be a composite?
Through the chair, council will be looking at trying to gain as much
exactly. That's what I'm
benefit as they possibly can out of the grant funding. I'm not currently over the requirements of the guidelines, so I could take a little bit on notice and provide some updates to councillors on this. This is where the initial thoughts of officers were.
So, for instance, would the placement of our power lines underground, because it's an enhancement of our high street in a strategic centre and improve the amenity of the high street and its functionality, be an area that could be considered for inclusion?
Potentially, I would think that looking at how to create further green space in your city centre would also be an opportunity that we could.
But the power line's going to be expensive to put underground. I'm just asking the question. If we can get a design costing, because we've already engaged the designer, get them to bring that forward. If there's sufficient funds within that, that's a big cost item that would be nice to be able to fund here. I don't know what other councillors support the view is.
Through the chair, reading the document as I would, I'd be looking down how that would potentially contribute to local character, potentially more than other things. But once again, I could take it on notice and look at that.
All right. What was the other thing? I think that's That's it. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move that this report be accepted.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Kellam.
Only one more comment, and that's on the section 6, where at 30th of November we had a total of over $34 million worth of grants going. Must
Amazing.
make our own source revenue ratio look absolutely bloody appalling.
I know.
I can live with
Yes,
that.
exactly. It has cost quite a bit, councillor.
Councillor Capel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report, I think, was perhaps jumping the gun a little bit, saying that the Black Springs Association has advised that they will contribute to the project, because when this report was written, they hadn't. However, I can advise that last night they did agree to contribute up to $15,000 to the project for the Black Springs Hall, toilets at the Black Springs Hall.
Thank you,
To
councillor.
make them disabled.
Councillor Gibbon.
That's what I was going to just speak on, and yes, so we're supporting them financially to get the job underway. And we had Chris Milne out there to present a good presentation, so that's a good result.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments on this one? With the recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 115, item 1407, water and sewer plant report. The recommendation is that the report item is received as information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kellam, and a second, Councillor Capel. Councillor Kellam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Always good to get the water and sewer report. I noted yesterday that the dam was down to 32.5%, which is a significant drop in a pretty short time.
Councillor Capel.
We have nothing really to add. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just that the report be received as information. Yes, I think that this water is going to be something that we need to be keeping a very close eye on, unless that rain front that's up on the north coast now comes down this way.
Any other comments on this one, councillor? Put the recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 117, item 1408, monthly update status of council resolutions. The recommendation is that the report item is received as information. Can I have someone to move that way, please? Councillor Capel and Councillor McKibben, thank you. Councillor Capel.
So I'm happy to move that the report be received as information.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, an extensive report. If I could, Madam Mayor, if I could go to page 121. So on the Oberon Sports Complex, which is the top item on that page that carries over from page 120, I thought at the last meeting we were told that Borg was going to have in the process of finalising these reports within the next 2 weeks. They would be going lodged with the JRPP. It now looks as though Borg is not going to do this, or it may do it prior to Christmas. Are we absolutely, because of the slippages so far, it's what, 4 weeks, it's absolutely certain that Borg are going to do it by Christmas?
Through the chair, I can confirm through meetings I've had today that the DA documents are very close and will be lodging next week.
Okay, thank you.
So the answer to the question is yes.
The next item is page 123, and it's going over from 122 and 121. So I understand that the building work has been handed over to prominent fluids for the fit out, but they've advised a delay until at least late January. Is there a contractual obligation, or was there in the contract with Prominent Fluids a contracted period of time in which they had to complete this? And if so, did we levy, are we going to levy any liquidated damages or damages for the delay? Because it's obviously not due to force majeure. It's through their own planning, etc. And I note that with the new project management and contract management procedures and policies we've put in place, this should have been included in the contract.
Through the chair, certainly nothing in the agreement to put a force majeure or anything on them at this stage. Again, look, it is an unfortunate circumstances that they've had, you know, obviously a 4 to 6 week delay. The equipment, though, I have been assured, and I have evidence to prove that it is ready to go. Unfortunately, the installation is not probably really the timely component. It's more so the actual integration into the plant and the approval process through state government, which then is another process on the back end of this. So, look, again, at this stage, we're in a position where, look, January is not that far away. You know, look, it is disappointing all the same, but it is a position that we're at this stage.
So did we delay in getting the project to where it is in November, or were prominent fluids provided in well advance with a timeline that said you'll be required to install late November?
Through the chair, yes, they certainly through a induction meeting with both prominent and FPS Constructions has been an engagement that has been progressively consulted with through the whole process. The disappointing part is, you know, unfortunately, the prominent has experienced a delay on another project further north of New South Wales, which has resulted in their technicians not being able to come to site to do the actual install. But again, the equipment is ready to go, has been manufactured purposely for this particular plant, and again, you know, the timeline is as outlined in the previous report, in the water report, set for January to occur.
In the request for tender, did we tell them that the anticipated date for installation was November 2020?
Again, through the chair, certainly that was the agreement that we had with prominent in terms of engaging them in anticipation of that timeline being met. Like all projects, I mean, not everything always goes to plan. Yeah, I do understand your force majeure process, but I think in the case that
this is not a force. This is not a force majeure.
It's a very minor delay all the same. So.
I do think that we should be sending a letter to Prominent Fluids saying we note that you have indicated to us a delay.
Through the chair again, that has been done.
Late January. But should the delay extend beyond late January, we will be considering our position in relation to damages for delay.
Yeah, again, through the chair, I think the General Manager can confirm. I have kept him abreast of the situation, and that particularly has been done.
So that letter has been sent in those words?
Those information has been sent, yes.
Okay.
And we know that Councillor Gibbons has left the room.
Just on the status of council, again, in the last meeting, which was the 17th of November, there was an item 26160419, which was came from the 16th of April 2019 meeting, which was the road closures portions of Edith Road. At the last meeting on the 17th of November, it was noted at the end that this matter was closed. Subsequent to the meeting, I have had discussions with both Mr. and Mrs. Webb, and I have subsequently sent a lengthy email to the General Manager in their view, this matter is certainly not quite closed, and I have requested the General Manager to carry out a full investigation into this matter, which has cost Mrs. Webb a considerable amount of money. I therefore ask that this matter be put back in this table as not being closed.
Through the chair, the matter closed was on the basis of information that was received to the Technical Services Director on behalf of how this has progressed. As I've indicated to Councillor McKibben, I'm more than happy to provide an update, and I'll be doing that. And I'll send the response to all councillors in regard to that investigation.
But I don't think the matter should be closed at this stage. It should be put back on the status.
Through the chair, the actions of the recommendations from council, I believe, have been met in the resolution. The fact that individuals don't think that matters have been closed because of certain things are at their discretion. But I certainly would like the opportunity to provide councillors with that update as to why that is, because there is more to it than just what's been provided to.
I understand that, but the principal involved who exchanged contracts and paid legal fees, etc., believe, and it was indicated, the last comment was this matter was resolved at a site meeting, does not believe it's closed, and they are the principal person involved with this issue. Therefore, I do not believe it can be closed.
Well, I think the fact that the General Manager has said it's closed and has offered to do a report, an investigation report, and circulate to councillors, I think is quite adequate.
Well, I don't think it can be closed, Madam Mayor. I disagree with that.
That's fine. Councillor McCarthy?
I just wanted clarification from Chris whether this ties it up. Is this something to do with the RTA meeting where the lady said that they want RMS were going to retain the ground?
Oh, yeah, through the chair, it was original request to regain some end variable road reserve adjacent to their property. The matter, as in terms of Transport for New South Wales, is their determination as the matter in a position where it is closed on the basis of acting on that advice from Transport for New South Wales. So, as the General Manager's pointed out, certainly furnished or furnishing the General Manager with further information pertaining to the matter, which will then be disclosed to councillors for further information.
So why wouldn't the matter remain open until that further information is disclosed and considered by council?
Through the chair again, the matter in discussion with the applicant at the time on the site visit with Transport for New South Wales, I believe was satisfied, and they were in agreement of that resolution and having full use of the land. And again, which I'll further outline in that information that I've provided through the General Manager for councillors.
And having expended a considerable amount of money.
Is there any other comments, councillors, on this report? I'm putting the recommendation. All in favour? Carried. Page 136, item 15. There is no urgent business this evening. Page 136, item 16, closed session confidential reports. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind as referred to in section 10A(2) of the Act and should be dealt with in a part of the meeting closed to the media and the public. I'd like to thank the members of the public for joining us here, at this evening's Zoom meeting. And I now call for a councillor to move that the council move into closed session, please. Councillor McKibben and Councillor Capel, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. I now request that the Minute Secretary turn off the recording at 9:07 p.m. Open Council resumed and recording recommenced at 9:40 p.m. The following resolutions were made in closed session and there were no members of the public present at this time. Item 1601 was resolved that council request the water notice for assessment 1236676 be paid in full. That council maintain resolution 33171120 in relation to water damage claims from November council meeting. Item 1602, that council receive the report for information. Council's item 1603, that council pursue further discussions with the property owner at Judd's Creek to allow negotiation of a purchase agreement for the cubic metre rate of gravel, including seeking owner consent to submit a development application. That council staff proceed to engage a suitably qualified independent property valuation for the potential purchase price of land located off felled timber Bell Timber Road, Porter's Retreat. The valuation to assist further negotiation on a potential purchase price agreement. Upon completion of recommendations 1 and 2 above, a further report outlining details of the 2 gravel quarries to be presented to council for further consideration as to the feasibility of the 2 options. After item 1604, there were no staff present at this time. It was resolved that the report is received and noted. A renewed 5-year Office of Local Government standard contract to be offered to Gary Wallace under the terms agreed by council, which will be reported as part of the Oberon Council's annual report. That council authorise the Mayor, Councillor Kathy Sadowitz, and Deputy Mayor, Councillor Mark Kellam, to finalise the employment contract in accordance with the outcome of the panel decision, OLG guidelines, and under the common seal of council. That the KPIs agreed to in October 2020 as part of the 2021 performance agreement criteria carry over into year 1 of the new contract. Staff are now back in the room. The next ordinary meeting of Oberon Council will be held on Tuesday, February the 16th, 2021, commencing at 5:30. I take this opportunity on behalf of councillors and staff to wish all Oberon residents a very Merry Christmas and a safe and healthy New Year. I now declare the meeting closed at 9:43. Good night. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you.